Yo legends! Welcome to Fanfiction Legend. Grab your headphones, because today's story is about to hit different. Disclaimer. I do not claim ownership of this story. All rights belong to the original creators. Make the Uchiha great again. Chapter 41 Don't Think We Are Left Alone. Chapter 41 Don't Think We Are Left Alone. Yuhara's words made all the Uchiha present frown, because such words could no longer be described as arrogant. Fortunately, Yuhara himself is an Uchiha, so it is acceptable for him to say such things. However, the prerequisite is that Yuhara must really demonstrate his strength to convince them, otherwise such arrogance will be disgusting to everyone. Slowly, a dozen Uchiha clan ninjas walked out from the shadow of the bamboo forest, but only one of them walked in front. He stared at Yuhara and then said indifferently, "You are worthy of being the genius of Uchiha. Your pride really comes from your bones. I just don't know if you are worthy of your pride." Yuhara couldn't help but roll his eyes when he heard what this guy said. It seemed as if he was saying, "You are truly a psychopath of the Uchiha clan." This made Yuhara feel a little uncomfortable, but Yuhara was not someone who would be easily talked to. He stared at the guy in front of him and suddenly shook his head. "Just you? What do you mean?" The guy had walked out of the shadows and was a sturdy young man. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Yuhara appeared in front of him. Without giving Ben any chance to react, Yuhara's eyes burst into a strange power, and at the same time, the bamboo pole in his hand had already stabbed out fiercely. The azure chakra was covered by Yuhara on the bamboo pole, and fell lightly on the burly ninja without any sound. The burly guy reacted quickly, and when he was about to move, Yuhara's scarlet eyes had already quietly looked into his eyes. In an instant, the burly ninja felt his brain suffocate, and the next second it seemed as if his mind went blank. Just at this moment, Yuhara's bamboo pole had hit him, and with a loud bang, the burly Uchiha ninja was knocked to the ground. All the ninjas present were stunned again. Yuhara's decisiveness was beyond their imagination. This guy really took action as soon as he saw an opportunity and didn't waste any time talking to you. Looking at the burly ninja lying on the ground in agony and unable to get up for a long time, their heartbeats couldn't help but quicken, but Yuhara's words made their blood pressure begin to rise. "My meaning is very clear, that is, you can't do it alone. Your purpose is to see my kaleidoscope, but I don't even need to open it for you alone." Having said this, Yuhara's gaze swept across everyone present, and the terrifying aura from him instantly burst out. The oppressive atmosphere continued to spread among the crowd, making them feel like their hearts were beating slower. "If that's all, you can't even please me." After saying this, Yuhara looked at everyone indifferently. Under the moonlight, Yuhara looked so terrifying. As the breeze blew, the bamboo forest kept making a rustling sound, and this sound seemed to be mocking everyone. "Go! We can't let this bastard look down on us." Finally, someone suddenly shouted loudly, and then all the tough young Uchiha present exploded. They roared, and then more than a dozen of them rushed towards Yuhara with anger. The two sides are not at the same level in terms of numbers. Even though the outcome of a ninja's battle can be decided by numbers most of the time, there will always be some exceptions. Just like this time. What? As soon as they came into face contact, a scream came out from the mouth of one of these ninjas. Facing the siege of this group of ninjas, although Yuhara could feel a certain degree of trouble, it was just trouble. His strength grew rapidly. Although his strength still lay in the quantity and quality of his chakra, his physical growth could not compare. But his speed and insight became more and more exaggerated, and during this month, Yuhara did not train himself. Even though Shisui has not decided to resign from the ANBU, Yuhara's training is more focused on research and development, especially on the research and development of Susanoo. Generally speaking, Yuhara's physical skills have also been greatly improved after obtaining the Mangekyo. Even if he didn't use the Mangekyo Sharingan, let alone the power of Do-Reverse, his strength was not something these guys could easily match. Under the moonlight, Yuhara was like a dancing butterfly in the crowd, and his movements were effortless. Any Uchiha ninja who had the slightest contact with him was instantly knocked down by him. Even though some ninjas also opened their Sharingan, due to the huge gap in insight, these Uchiha ninjas had no way of blocking his attacks. Under Yuhara's command, fighting was like an art, with every movement being extremely simple and natural. He casually threw the bamboo pole in his hand high up, then he slightly dodged the attack of a ninja, and then he quickly punched the most vulnerable part of an Uchiha ninja in front of him. Suddenly, the Uchiha flew backwards, and under the clever use of force, several of his companions behind him were blocked. The Scarlet Sharingan turned his head slightly, and he suddenly leaned to the side slightly, and a wooden kunai stabbed at his back. These guys were obviously well prepared. Judging from the materials used in their weapons, they didn't seem to be planning on holding anything like the Hongmen banquet. But even so, Yuhara had no intention of going easy on him. Since these guys wanted to see his strength, Yuhara would naturally give them a good look. He stretched out his right hand and grabbed the wooden kunai that the Uchiha ninja in front of him was stabbing at him, along with his arm. Then the Uchiha ninja felt his arm was out of control and was being pulled in another direction. Boom! There was only a dull sound, and the other Uchiha ninja was hit hard in the chest by the wooden kunai, and then he flew backwards. Even if it is a wooden kunai, being hit hard is an extremely painful experience. And Yuhara didn't even look at the guy who was knocked away. He twisted his wrist hard, and the wrist of the Uchiha he caught was completely dislocated. Then Yuhara crouched down again and cleverly dodged a ninja attack. Then he rushed out like a cheetah. An Uchiha ninja only saw Yuhara rushing towards him, but he could not make any moves and flew backwards. The Sharingan turned slightly, and a ninja who was about to hit Yuhara suddenly froze in place. The next moment he was kicked away by Yuhara, and the bamboo pole that he had thrown high up fell down and was caught by Yuhara. I am really disappointed. The chakra in Yuhara's body was still surging, and his eyes swept over everyone again, then he chuckled. If it's just this extent, then I think that's the end of it. You can't even force my kaleidoscope to come out. Uchiha Yuhara, enough. At this moment, a middle-aged man suddenly walked out. The middle-aged man had an ugly expression on his face, and the chakra intensity on his body was also very high. The most important thing was that there seemed to be a vague murderous aura on this guy. It is obvious that this man definitely participated in the Third Ninja World War, and he was an elite who came back alive. Yuhara frowned when he saw this guy, but soon he continued to smile and asked, "Oh, can't I even tell the truth? You are very strong, so strong that it is frightening." This is indeed true. The middle-aged man said in a low voice, "But they are also your people, and don't think we are alone." End of this chapter. Chapter 42 He is qualified. Chapter 42 He is qualified. Don't think we are alone. The middle-aged man spoke very loudly and firmly, but in Yuhara's eyes it sounded like the wail of a loser. In the past, Yuhara had only guessed how much the Mangekyo could suppress the ordinary Sharingan. But now he is completely sure that such suppression is simply unimaginable, because others have what you use, and they are stronger than you. What you don't have, others have, and their abilities are strange and powerful beyond imagination. Even if it is not activated, it can enhance the status and strength of the three Magatama Sharingan. It can be said that the Mangekyo Sharingan and the ordinary Sharingan are really products of two dimensions. It is no wonder that Uchiha Itachi and Obito were able to destroy the huge Uchiha clan so easily, although they also had the secret assistance of the root. However, Yu Yuan would not let this happen. Everything he was doing now was to completely eliminate such possibility. Raising his head slightly, Yuhara stared at the guy in front of him. He shook his head slightly. "That's a good thing to say, but can you do it?" Having said that, Yuhara casually stuck the bamboo pole in his hand into the ground, and the chakra in his body surged again at this moment. Strength is not just empty talk. No matter how nice it sounds, it's all fake. At least what I saw was that you couldn't even force out my kaleidoscope. To be honest, with such strength, you still want to stage a coup? Even if you want to stage a coup, have you ever thought of finding a few more allies? Not to mention managing one's own image, determining one's own goals, and integrating the hearts of the family members. Your people are not united. What are you going to use to rebel? You don't even have a goal. Do you want to fight against the entire Konoha? You think you are lions, but in my eyes you are just sheep? I'm afraid Konoha thinks so too, otherwise he wouldn't have attacked me. After arguing for so many days, you should have realized that Konoha is trying to force you to take action. Because once you start, Konoha will have an excuse to get rid of all of us. Having said that, Yuhara took a deep breath, and the 3 magatama in his eyes began to spin faster. Along with this rotation, a repressive and destructive force began to quietly spread in the bamboo forest. So I always say that it's okay for you to be tough, but being tough to a certain extent is stupid. This is just like the Uchiha clan's blind compromise, which will only lead to their destruction. A strong tree will break and everything will turn into its opposite when it reaches its extreme. You will definitely cause the entire family to perish. Also, you guys want to see my kaleidoscope? Then take a good look at it and feel it. As he finished speaking, the 3 magatama in Yuhara's eyes had merged into one. The strange patterns accompanied by the terrifying power made the already somewhat strange bamboo forest even more creepy. In an instant, Azure Chakra began to emerge on Yuhara's body, and these chakras madly covered Yuhara's body, slowly forming the shape of ribs. Seeing this scene, everyone present couldn't help but swallow their saliva, especially the elders. Their bodies began to tremble. Susanoo. In fact, when seeing Yuhara's Sharingan with strange patterns, these hardline elders were already excited. This was the first time they saw the Mangekyo of the younger generation with their own eyes. Although Shisui also has a Mangekyo, he stands behind Uchiha Munchige, which is completely different from their position. Moreover, Shisui was an Umbu member who had been away from the family for a long time and even seldom participated in family meetings. He had never seen Shisui's Mangekyo. Speaking of which, this situation is really depressing. They are obviously a family, but they are so unfamiliar and resistant to each other. Perhaps this is what Yuhara said, the family members are not united, yet they are trying to stage a coup. Although Yuhara is not the same kind of person as them, this guy is even many times worse than Shisui in some aspects. But if you think about it carefully, Yuhara does have the capital to have such an attitude, because Yuhara not only opened the Mangekyo Sharingan, but also was able to use Susanoo. Most of them had experienced the period when Uchiha Madara left, and also experienced the period when Uchiha Chiri's 4 pairs of Mangekyos fought chaotically. Even if they did not open the Mangekyo, they understood that each pair of Mangekyo had different eye techniques, and that the most powerful power hidden in each pair of Mangekyo was Susanoo. Every pair of Mangekyo can indeed activate its own Susanoo, but not everyone who owns a Mangekyo can activate this ability. Because using this technique not only requires a very high level of proficiency in the kaleidoscope, but also because using this technique will damage your own kaleidoscope. The fact that Yuhara was able to use this technique smoothly and effortlessly at this time shows how strong Yuhara's control over his kaleidoscope is. Looking at the middle-aged man who seemed somewhat uncomfortable and frightened when facing Susanoo, even Susanoo in its most basic state. The old man who had spoken to the hardliner before sighed helplessly. He walked forward slowly and finally stood in front of the middle-aged man. "It's okay, Hahara-kun, it's okay now." Elder. The middle-aged man couldn't help feeling ashamed when he saw what the elder did. He lowered his head as if he didn't dare to look into Yuhara's eyes. Others may not be able to feel it, but as the person who faces the greatest pressure from Yuhara, he knows best how terrifying the despair from the heart is after being locked by the kaleidoscope. He himself didn't know how much courage he had mustered to face all this. If possible, he really didn't want to go through it again. "Okay, Tomoya, if we're not opponents, then we're not opponents. And it's not like Hahara-kun is humiliating us." The elder shook his head gently to tell the middle-aged man to stop talking, and then he looked at Yuhara seriously. "Habara-kun has this ability, he stands at a height that we cannot reach. He looks down on all of us and he has the authority to do whatever he wants. Let everyone leave. I think you should know how big the gap is." Having said that, the elder ignored Uchiha Tomoya behind him and continued walking forward. When he walked in front of Yuhara, he stared into Yuhara's eyes. His action made Yuhara frown involuntarily. In the old man's eyes, Yuhara saw obsession and infinite longing. However, the old man seemed to realize that his behavior was a bit excessive, and he quickly came to his senses. Only after he had made himself look more normal did he say quietly, "Hahara-kun, I think we can have a good chat." "Oh?" Yuhara raised his eyebrows, and then he couldn't help but smile. "Don't you need to look at my state under the Mangekyo Sharingan?" "No, this is enough." The old man shook his head, and then he spoke seriously. "You don't have to keep doing this, Yuhara-kun. It's not good for your eyes." "Thanks to Phonics Bomb for the reward, thank you, Thank you. PS, please collect and read on. Thank you everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 43 The future of Uchiha is in your hands. Chapter 43 The future of Uchiha is in your hands. It is true that Yuhara's eyesight is not very good after maintaining Susanoo for a long time, but in fact it is not as bad as the old man in front of him imagined. Yuhara's Susanoo was opened with the help of Yamazumi, which can greatly reduce the difficulty for Yuhara to open Susanoo. In addition, after a month of training and learning, Yuhara discovered that this difficulty reduction seemed to be more than just turned on. Even the consumption of Susanoo itself seems to be counted as part of the reduced difficulty factor, and the consumption of Yuhara's eyes is actually not as great as imagined. However, Susanoo consumes more than just eye power, it also consumes chakra like crazy. Although more of the chakra consumed seemed to come from the Susanoo, which was buried deep in Yuhara's eyes and seemed to exist in a different space, belonging to Yuhara's own guardian deity. However, communicating such power and making it come down through the Mangekyo Sharingan is a very difficult and chakra-consuming task. Fortunately, after Yuhara opened the Mangekyo, his chakra increased tremendously, and what he opened was only the initial stage of Susanoo. This amount of consumption is really nothing to him. This is the conclusion he got after a month of experiments and training. Otherwise, Yu Yuan would not dare to use it indiscriminately. He silently closed Susanoo and his Mangekyo Sharingan, and Yuhara just looked at the old man in front of him quietly. In Yuhara's memory, the old man's name was Uchiha Takatoshi, and he was an old man of very high status in the family. However, like Uchiha Mune, he has basically no connection with Yuhara, and their political demands are also very annoying to Yuhara. After all, after they gained enough say and forced Uchiha Fugaku, the well-hidden moderate, to defect, Konoha took action against Uchiha without hesitation. It would be really strange for Yuhara to have any good feelings towards a guy like this. Now this guy has kept all the elders and said he wants to have a good talk. Yuhara is very curious about what they are going to talk about. However, what makes Yuhara happy is that what they are going to talk about now may be the answer that Yuhara is willing to get. After Uchiha Tomoya and those guys who were beaten up by Yuhara lowered their heads and silently left the bamboo forest, Uchiha Takatoshi spoke. Well, they've all left. I hope you're not angry about what happened tonight, Hahara-kun. Having said that, Uchiha Takechi sighed silently, and then he continued. I heard Elder Naoki talk about your meeting this morning, and I essentially agree with your point of view, but there is one thing I cannot do. That is to use the toughest attitude to ask the children who follow me to listen to me, give up those grudges, let go of those hatreds, and let go of our previous beliefs. The battle of beliefs between the two sides has been going on for who knows how many years. Until today, many things have made us unable to control ourselves. So, you need me to tell them? When Yuhara heard what Uchiha Takatoshi said, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Although there was nothing wrong with what this guy said, Yuhara would not completely believe him. After he said this, he thought about it for a while and suddenly laughed. At the same time, you also want to see my kaleidoscope, right? The look in your eyes just now has told me everything. Indeed, I do long to see the kaleidoscope again. After all, I haven't seen eyes like this for a long, long time. Uchiha Takatoshi had no intention of refutation at all. He just nodded and then smiled. Besides, fighting them is also a way to confirm your prestige. If you want to be the clan leader, you naturally need everyone's recognition. In the Uchiha sect, having Shisui's approval is enough to make others fully recognize you. But the situation here is different. No matter how strong Shisui is, we don't have much contact. The children who follow me are ignorant. They have only heard of the Mangekyo but don't know its power. Naturally, they will not recognize these. Therefore, your action can also make up for this, and it is also a good thing to let these ignorant children know the ultimate power of Uchiha. The Uchiha's ultimate power? When Yuhara heard this, he couldn't help but be stunned. Although the Mangekyo is considered a very powerful force of the Uchiha clan, it is definitely not the ultimate power, right? After all, above the Mangekyo, there is the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, which is never blind and possesses almost infinite power. Could it be that this old man doesn't even know the existence of these eyes? Yuhara thought about it for a moment and didn't bother to care about this question anymore. After all, Yuhara got the answer he wanted to hear. The word clan leader came out of Uchiha Takatoshi's mouth, coupled with the threat made by Yuhara in the morning and the current performance. This can be seen as a recognition from the old man. Of course it could also be a compromise. But no matter which one it was, Yuhara got the answer he wanted. Tell me, what are your requests? Yuhara took a deep breath, then raised his head and looked at Uchiha Takatoshi seriously. Although he already knew that he had been recognized, he didn't believe that Uchiha Takatoshi would be so easy to obey. This guy Uchiha Zone even negotiated with him, although he only had the courage to do so because of Shisui. However, Uchiha Takatoshi is more or less an elder, and he must have his own ideas. Even if Yuhara may not agree with him, he can definitely listen to them. Listen to his demands and know his thoughts, which will make it easier for Yuhara to make some judgments. I know that the Uchiha clan has made 2 requests to you, that Shisui be the deputy clan leader, and that you gain our approval. I heard that you agreed to the first request and you have already met the second request, so I also made 2 requests. Don't worry, we won't make things difficult for you. Uchiha Takatoshi looked at Yuhara seriously, and then he spoke seriously. First, you must ensure the safety of the family. This is your duty as the patriarch. Second, you must do everything you promised. I want to see you make Uchiha great again. These are the only 2 things I ask for. Can you agree to them? Yuhara was stunned when he heard his words. He had been wondering what kind of request this old man would make, even a request that would make things difficult for him. But he didn't expect that the way he proposed to play football was so simple, and it could even be said that this is what Yuhara would do in the future. At this moment, he discovered that although the Uchiha people had some problems with their brains, their hearts did not seem as bad as he had imagined. Although they have different ideas, they are all trying to save the family in their own way. Even though the ending was terrible, they were actually trying to do it, which made Yuhara think highly of them. Taking a deep breath, Yuhara nodded seriously. I agree to your request. I will do my best to complete it, and your request is also my ultimate goal. Is that so? Upon hearing this, Uchiha Takatoshi's smile couldn't help but become much brighter. He turned around and looked at Uchiha Zone and others, and Uchiha Zone led the elders of his lineage, and the hardline elders such as Uchiha Naoki walked over. Soon, all of them stood in a row, their expressions became extremely serious, and the next moment they all bowed slightly collectively. Master Clan Leader, the future of the Uchiha is in your hands. End of this chapter. Chapter 44 Changes. Chapter 44 Changes. So, you have already been recognized by both sides? I guess so. Although I have to say that the people on both sides have problems in their brains, they are also wholeheartedly for the sake of the family. Moreover, they became obedient after witnessing my kaleidoscope. On a sunny afternoon, Hainhara and Shisui sat at the edge of a training ground and talked quietly. But Shisui's face looked a little embarrassed at this moment, because Yuhara's words also included him in the insult. However, he had nothing to refute about Yuhara's words. After all, according to the ideas given by Yuhara, they were indeed the ones with mental problems. But no matter if there is a problem or not, all of this is already in the past, because Shisui has received a piece of news that makes him extremely excited. Today is his day off, and he originally wanted to go home to ask Yuhara about the situation, but when he got home, he found that Yuhara was not there. After some inquiries, he found Yuhara at the training ground, but he had just arrived and before he had time to ask, he was caught by Yuhara and started training together. Although Shisui was anxious to get the answer, he saw that Yuhara was calm and in the mood to train and hone his newly acquired ninja sword. He knew that the situation shouldn't be that bad, so he simply calmed down and stayed with Yuhara until it was over just now. Only after it was over did he have the opportunity to ask Yuhara about what had happened during this period, and he also got a very pleasing answer. That is, both Uchiha Myun, whom he regarded as his grandfather, and the hardline Uchiha Takatoshi had already agreed to Yuhara. The requests they put forward also moved Shisui's heart. He really didn't expect that the requests raised by these 2 elders were so simple. Just as Yuhara said, although they did mess up the family because of their own ideas, they really wanted the family to become better. Well, congratulations, Hainhara. Jigwa decided not to continue this topic. He was worried that Yuhara's words would ruin his inner feelings. He looked at Yuhara with a smile and then asked. Then, should I call you patriarch like the other elders? It's still early. At least we won't start until there are many things done. Are you impatient to become the deputy team leader? Yuhara turned around and teased Shisui without any hesitation, which made Shisui scratch his head. In fact, the elders did have a lot of things to do, such as negotiating the bottom line of how both sides should treat Konoha. This kind of thing is very time-consuming and laborious. They dragged Yuhara to discuss these things for more than half a month. But fortunately, although these things are very difficult to deal with, especially on some issues, they simply cannot reach an agreement. But they had already had an agreement before, so when they couldn't discuss it further, they just handed it over to Yuhara to make the decision. In fact, Yuhara also felt a headache when facing these troublesome problems, but fortunately he always knew what to do and how to do it. Therefore, he was different from Uchiha Fugaku. He made decisions on these matters without any hesitation. As for the remaining small details, Yuhara was too lazy to bother with them. Since the general direction is under his control, Yuhara will just turn a blind eye to other things that they are fighting for their own interests. Doing everything by yourself will eventually tire you out. He has not forgotten that a certain wise but diabolical prime minister exhausted himself in this way. As long as it is within a reasonable range, Yuhara cannot control everything. He understands that everyone must eat the cake in order to get everyone on board. In addition to this, Yuhara will also go with them to contact the young people of the family, as well as the majority of the Uchiha, as Yuhara mentioned. Since Yuhara has already spoken frankly about the operating mechanism of power, and having studied Mao Zedong thought, he also understands too well what people's power means. Therefore, Yuhara was happy to spend his time on this. Besides, if the family wanted to prosper, he could not just focus on the ranks of ninjas. Yuhara has to pay attention to all aspects, and he needs to make changes, so that the family can prosper and he can get more points in exchange for better abilities. Currently bound to Uchiha clan. Current status, relatively balanced. You have solved the internal problems of the family, but there are still evil people around outside. Prosperity, 11,000, the normal family's basic prosperity is 10,000. Suggestion, integrate all the family's strength to deal with the impact of external enemies. After Yuhara integrated the two major factions, he also got some points, but these points were so few that Yuhara was depressed. Even though these points were enough for Yuhara to participate in another lottery, they had reached 1,000 after all, and Yuhara didn't get anything good this time. Ninjutsu, air shield, every time you cast a jutsu, you will gain a shield made of chakra that can offset a certain amount of damage. Finally, Yuhara chose a defensive ability. To be honest, he actually wanted to see the granite shield from last time, but unfortunately he didn't get it. He really didn't understand. He had clearly integrated the two factions, so why couldn't the system give him more points? But after thinking about it, he suddenly realized one thing, that is, his integration did not come from the integration of the patriarch. This means that there is actually still a huge difference between the clan leaders' ideas and their ideas, and the system's judgment is still based on a higher level of the Uchiha family. This means that unless Yuhara can become the clan leader, his points probably won't increase much. But it will be soon. After all, this kind of thing cannot be delayed. Several months have passed since he got the system, and the night of genocide in Yu Yuan's memory seems to be getting closer and closer. But the good thing is that Yuhara is basically prepared, and tragedy will never happen in his hands. And after he finishes what he has to do now, he will formally challenge Uchiha Fugaku. He must get the position of the patriarch of the Uchiha clan at all costs. By the way, Shisui. Suddenly, Yuhara seemed to have thought of something, so he asked, "How is that Itachi kid now?" Itachi? Shisui blinked, as if he was lost in thought, and then slowly said, "He has been busy with missions recently, but he will be back soon." Is that so? Yuhara didn't care what Uchiha Itachi's mission was. After all, he couldn't ask about the Yambu's mission casually. However, Yuhara was also considering one thing, although Yuhara was really dissatisfied with Uchiha Itachi, the traitor. But considering that this guy hasn't done anything harmful yet, and the family really needs strength to deal with the trouble. So Yuhara decided to give it a try. He wanted Shisui to see if he could convince this guy Uchiha Itachi. If you can, then everything will be fine, if not. What's wrong? Why do you look so gloomy? Just as Yuhara was thinking, Shisui suddenly asked curiously, you and Itachi don't seem to have a good relationship since you were young. It's strange that he doesn't seem to like you very much. Maybe my ideas conflict with his. Yuen came back to his senses and couldn't help but smile. By the way, the family needs strength. Can you see if you can convince this guy to help us? Convince him? Shisui was stunned for a moment, then he nodded seriously. No problem, I can do it, but I have to tell him how much family information you give him. Try not to reveal it to anyone. Yuhara thought about it seriously, and finally he said slowly, just tell him that the family has different ideas and thoughts that can change the family. Unless he really agrees, otherwise. You don't trust him? Never mind. Leave this to me. I'll take care of it. Then, I'll leave it to you. Thanks to classmate Gundam Throne for the reward, thank you, thank you. P.S. Please collect it, and especially please read it. It is very important to read it now. Thank you everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 45 Waiting. Chapter 45 Waiting. Letting Shisui try to persuade Itachi was something that Yuhara thought about for a long time before deciding. Although Yuhara really doesn't like this self-righteous and conceited guy, everything he does is what he thinks is the best choice for Konoha and the family. Even when it came to Sasuke, he did what he thought was right based on his own understanding without ever really considering Sasuke's feelings and thoughts. If this kind of character and behavior cannot be described as self-righteous and conceited, Yuhara doesn't know how else to describe it. Although in the original work, Uchiha Itachi finally came to his senses and expressed his regret to Sasuke. But the Uchiha clan had been completely wiped out, and Yuhara didn't know whether his confession would really be useful. Anyway, if he puts himself in the shoes of the Uchiha group, he feels that it is useless, so Yuhara has always had a bad impression of Uchiha Itachi. Of course, perhaps it was also because he lived in a country with a 1,000-year-old tradition of filial piety before he traveled through time. And in Yuhara's opinion, the grudges between Konoha and Uchiha are not unsolvable problems. Although the Uchiha clan does have huge problems with how to express their political demands, their core ideology is essentially just the pursuit of fairness. As one of the two founding families of Konoha, the Uchiha clan can be said to have only received fair and impartial treatment at the beginning of its establishment, when Hashirama Senju was in power. But since Uchiha Madara left and Senju Hashirama died, their clan has really drifted away from Konoha. They never had the possibility of becoming Hokage, and under the influence of Tobirama Senju, they were feared, terrified, and rejected by the residents of Konoha. All of this is the greatest harm to the Uchiha clan who chose to stay. In such an atmosphere, the Uchiha people came up with two extreme ideas, one of extreme compromise and the other of extreme toughness. But no matter which one it is, their goal is to take back what belongs to them legally and legitimately, but they probably never dreamed that Uchiha Itachi would appear. In fact, Yuhara was unwilling to pay attention to Uchiha Itachi. After all, when he was a child, he also wanted to curry favor with him for the sake of interests, but Uchiha Itachi never paid any attention to him. In addition, as a time traveler who knew what Uchiha Itachi would do in the future, Yuhara gradually just tried to get along well with Shisui, and that was all. Now Yuhara is basically certain that he can become the clan leader, so he also needs enough people to help him. Although Uchiha Itachi has a terrible personality and thinking ability, it is undeniable that he is a guy with the potential of Mangekyo Sharingan. And even if Yuhara was unhappy with Uchiha Itachi because of things that had not happened in the future, he had to admit that those things had not happened yet. Since it didn't happen, and everything Yuhara did was to redeem it, then his best course of action would be to put aside some personal emotions, consider the matter from the family's perspective, and see if he could win over Uchiha Itachi. If you can dig it up, do it. If you can't, forget it. Uchiha Itachi did this for Sasuke, but Konoha also holds a special place in his heart. It is normal that such people cannot get along with us. Yuhara muttered to himself, and then he was too lazy to pay attention to the matter anymore. He would leave it to Shisui anyway, so he didn't need to worry about it so much. Besides, Shisui is much more concerned about the handling of this matter than Hainbara, and he really hopes that Itachi can be with them. Shisui and Itachi have a very good relationship, and even before Hanebara brainwashed Shisui, their relationship was deeper than that between Hanebara and Shisui. Before his death, Shisui gave his only Mangekyo Sharingan to Itachi, and Itachi opened his Mangekyo Sharingan because of Shisui's death. It can be said that the relationship between the two of them is like that of brothers who are not real. To be frank, even now Shisui already has new ideas and hopes, and has resolutely embarked on a new path. But after all, the feelings between the two of them are still there. Yuhara uses Shisui to win over Uchiha Itachi, and he is also looking forward to what will happen. But it's better to focus on myself now, and the things that need to be done are continuing in an orderly manner. And I also have time to take care of my own affairs, such as learning the ninjutsu that I should learn. At the same time, I also want to see if I can improve my Susanoo. I have the ability to reduce the difficulty of using Susanoo, and also the ability to increase the power of Susanoo. If we don't take advantage of these advantages, it would be really unreasonable. There are indeed many areas where Yuhara needs to improve, especially in terms of ninjutsu, or he can achieve great improvement. In the past, as a mission ninja, he naturally did not receive much resource investment as he had not joined any faction of the family. But now that he has convinced both sides, the resources he can get will definitely not be small. He could now thoroughly learn the great fire extinguishing technique that he had long dreamed of. He was very much looking forward to the day when he could be like Uchiha Madara and shock the ninja world with a single fire style. However, the elders of both sides and I have been meeting with the people below for so many days, it is impossible for Uchiha Fugaku not to know the news. I don't know what he is thinking right now, or whether he can sense our ill intentions towards him. To be honest, it doesn't matter now whether Uchiha Fugaku can detect what they are doing. The important thing is that Yuhara has completed the initial integration, and these things cannot be changed whether he knows it or not. Now, we can only wait for the next round of clan meetings to begin. By then, everything will be completely changed. While Yuhara was quietly waiting for the clan meeting to begin, Uchiha Itachi had already returned to the family after completing his mission. In fact, there is another thing for him to return to the family, that is, the family meeting is about to begin, and he needs to go to the family to participate in this meeting to collect more information. Although Shisui was involved in this matter besides him, Uchiha Itachi didn't care about these things. In his opinion, this might be a way to collect better and more comprehensive intelligence. However, Uchiha Itachi, who had just returned home and took a look at his younger brother Sasuke. Then he quietly left the house again and went to the place where he and Shisui had a secret meeting. He hadn't seen Shisui in a while, the A&Bu's mission was really busy and the secrecy was extremely high. Even though they were both in the Ambu, they didn't have much time to meet each other. He had a lot to say to Shisui and a lot of questions he wanted to discuss with Shisui. In his eyes, Shisui is his brother, a brother who has taken care of Yuka since childhood and taught him many things. End of this chapter. Chapter 46 Shisui and Itachi. Chapter 46 Shisui and Itachi. Uchiha Itachi was very fast. In the dark, he quietly bypassed the Uchiha clan's secret sentries and took about 10 minutes to reach a cliff on the riverbank. He didn't want to attract the attention of his clan members, especially since the atmosphere in the clan was too depressing and weird. And this cliff is the secret base of him and Shisui. In this place, Uchiha Itachi can speak freely and vent his true feelings. Looking around, he saw a figure sitting cross-legged on the edge of the cliff, quietly watching the flow of the river. When Uchiha Itachi saw this figure, a smile appeared on his face. Shisui. A happy smile appeared on Uchiha Itachi's face, and then he jumped towards Shisui's position. "You're here, Itachi." Shisui also smiled, and then he stood up from the edge of the cliff. The cliff is very high and standing on the edge of it will make people feel dizzy. But Shisui seemed to be oblivious to all this, as if the towering cliff did not exist at all. Soon, Uchiha Itachi came to his side, but soon a hint of curiosity appeared on Uchiha Itachi's face. He looked Shisui up and down. He always felt that there was something different about his brother. The last time they met, although Shisui was still smiling, one could feel the powerlessness and depression in his brows. But today was different. Shisui's face was still full of smiles, but this smile truly came from the heart, without the powerlessness and depression of before. Such a change made Uchiha Itachi really curious, and finally he couldn't help but ask, Shisui, you look very happy today, what happened? I guess so. It's relatively good news. Shisui nodded. Although he was somewhat impressed by Itachi's sharp reaction, he did not intend to hide anything. He is indeed very happy now, because the changes within the family really make him extremely happy. The conversation between Yuhara and him not long ago made him realize that they were now only one step away from truly changing their family. Although he was not very interested in the position of deputy clan leader, he knew that this was a position that could really help Yuhara. He could really see the changes in the family more clearly, so he did not refuse at all. As for supervising Yuhara, he felt that it was unnecessary. Yuhara was so rational and powerful, he didn't think it was possible for Yuhara to lead the Uchiha astray. He felt that what he had to do was to help Yuhara, help him and witness the changes in the family and the village with him. Just looking at Uchiha Itachi in front of him, Shisui suddenly felt a headache again, because he suddenly remembered what Yuhara told him, that some things cannot be said too clearly. Although Shisui didn't quite understand why Yuhara made this request, he also didn't quite understand why Yuhara didn't trust Itachi. However, since Shisui had promised Yuhara, he would naturally do as he was told, even if the person he was facing was Uchiha Itachi. What news? Uchiha Itachi felt very strange because Shisui's expression changed when he told the good news, which made him secretly remember it in his mind. This. Shisui suddenly didn't know how to explain or start speaking. He needed to organize his words well, but his actions made Uchiha Itachi even more uneasy. After a long time, Shisui finally sighed quietly. He probably knew how he was going to say it. It's like this, there may have been some changes in the family. Both the clan elders and Juji realized that what they did in the past was not right. So the family has now begun to discard the previous voices and prepare to let everyone unify their will, so that. Unify their will? What will they unify? What are they going to do? Before Shisui could finish his words, Uchiha Itachi interrupted him directly, and now he looked a little strange. For Uchiha Itachi, this news really shocked him and made him extremely stunned. There was an ongoing dispute between two factions in the family. How could he not know this? As someone who longed for his family and the village to coexist peacefully, he could not imagine that his people would unite with the hardliners. So after unifying their wills, can these people who yearn for peace really coexist peacefully with the village? Can they still uphold the ideals they had previously upheld under such circumstances? Will they be inevitably influenced by the hardline ideas and the entire family will fall into extremes? These are things that Uchiha Itachi could not imagine and dared not imagine. What he could not imagine the most was Shisui, the person he regarded as his brother. Looking at his expression, he seemed to feel very good about this kind of thing, which really made Uchiha Itachi unable to understand. It was Shisui who told him that the family and the village must trust and depend on each other, and the family must be reintegrated into the village so that everyone will be better off. Uchiha Itachi has always kept this belief in mind, but when he thinks about a problem, he would put himself in the shoes of the Hokage to look at everything. But once he looked at the Uchiha from the perspective of the village, he found that the Uchiha had become a destabilizing factor in the village. He thought about why it turned out like this, but his conclusion was always the family is not satisfied with the current situation and always maintains unrealistic fantasies. This made him even more eager for the family to settle down. Only when it settled down could his younger brother have a better growth environment in Konoha, and Konoha would become stable. But now, Shisui's words made him feel cold inside. He didn't know why it turned out like this, but he really couldn't accept it. Itachi, don't be anxious, just listen to me first. Shisui couldn't help but frown when he saw Itachi's look. He didn't know what Itachi was thinking, and he didn't know how much Itachi disliked such a change. He just thought that Itachi couldn't accept what he insisted on in his heart when he first heard these things, so he sighed and then spoke slowly. In fact, the direction we have been working towards is wrong. Yes, I am wrong. We yearn for peace and we long to gain peace with the village through our own efforts so that we can be integrated into the entire village. But we have never thought about one question, that is whether the village will allow us to integrate into it. In fact, the answer to this question has been obtained through our continuous compromise, concession and efforts, no. The Sandaime Hokage was the disciple of the Nidaime Hokage, and the changes of the Uchiha clan began with the Nidaime Hokage. The Sandaime inherited the will of the second Hokage, and not only him but also his staff members were the same. Some things really cannot be changed easily. I secretly read some information when I was in the Yambu, and I can tell you that everything I said is true. Itachi, you have been smart since you were young. How can we survive in this situation? Thanks to Jisoo Guanyu and Ian for the rewards, thank you, thank you. P.S. Newbies, please collect and read my articles. Especially reading my articles is very important now. Thank you everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 47 Breakup. Chapter 47 Breakup. After Shisui finished speaking, he looked at Uchiha Itachi silently. Itachi had already closed his eyes, and at this moment he was completely silent, because he really couldn't imagine that Shisui would say such words. The second Hokage is not satisfied with the Uchiha, then why did the second Hokage accept Uchiha Kagami as his disciple and teach him carefully? The Sandaime Hokage inherited the will of the second Hokage and is also dissatisfied with the Uchiha. Then why did the third Hokage let Uchiha take charge of the guard department, and why did he allow himself and Shisui to enter the Yambu together? As for what made the Uchiha let down their guard and use the guard department to split the Uchiha and the village, how is this possible? The Uchiha gained enormous power because of the guard department, but it was the Uchiha's own attitude that caused the family and the village to split. In Itachi's mind, he didn't dare to believe and didn't want to believe Shisui's words. At this moment, he just felt that Shisui in front of him was so strange. He didn't know why Shisui would believe such words. Couldn't he see what the Hokage-sama had done for the Uchiha? Moreover, the third Hokage was really dissatisfied with the Uchiha clan. The clan meeting report they submitted could have long been the basis for Konoha to take action against the Uchiha clan. Feelings of anger, sadness and disappointment continued to spread in Uchiha Itachi's heart, but he quickly suppressed his inner thoughts. As a qualified ninja, especially as a qualified Umbu, he knew that he could not expose his emotions casually. Especially since he still needs to confirm a lot of things, he must get more information. So, what are you going to do? Uchiha Itachi made his tone sound like a normal state. What is your new idea? Itachi, are you okay? Shisui frowned. Although Uchiha Itachi made himself look normal, Shisui was also an Umbu. He could naturally notice that Itachi was obviously not in a good state at the moment, but after thinking for a moment, he decided to talk to Itachi properly. After all, Itachi is a genius of the family. If he can really help the family, then it will definitely be a good thing for the family. Especially now that they are different from before, Shisui can see hope for the future, and he really wants to persuade Itachi to help them. I'm fine, don't worry. Uchiha Itachi took a deep breath and then said seriously. In that case, then I'll tell you. Shisui nodded slightly, then began to speak seriously. Shisui spoke slowly, but also very carefully. He discussed the two factions in the family regarding the current situation of Konoha and the family, and after hiding the existence of Yuhara, he talked about the results in detail. For example, the family has already realized that continuing to be weak will not lead to any good results, because the result of being weak will inevitably be the gradual erosion of Konoha. Ultimately, the family will not get closer to Konoha, but will only continue to widen the distance and cause them to perish in Konoha. And the result of continuing to be tough will not be good. It will only make the family an enemy of the entire Konoha, and the ultimate outcome will be destruction. In this case, the best thing for both sides to do is to integrate their thoughts and wills and stop fighting and dividing the family. They decided not to compromise too much with Konoha. They needed to be tough, to fight and to resist, but they can't just be tough all the time, they must have a clear goal. They do not intend to rebel, but they will take corresponding hostile measures against their goals. They want to make their voices heard in Konoha. Having said this, Shisui stopped talking. In his opinion, this was enough. Even though what he said wasn't particularly detailed, after all, he had promised Yuhara that he wouldn't go back on his word, but he felt that it was completely understandable when he said this. Because what Shisui expressed was very clear, that is, to take a different approach to achieve peace between the family and the village. But Uchiha Itachi's expression had become even uglier, especially when he heard Shisui say no more compromise and concession, we need to be tough and resist. He knew things were going to get bad. Although Shisui has been emphasizing that the family will not rebel and that the family must be at peace with the village, how can the family get all this without compromising or rebelling? I'm afraid that in the end, there will still be endless entanglement with the Hokage, which will eventually cause a split between the Hokage and the family, thereby leading to the split of Konoha and the family. Hokage is the Hokage of Konoha. Doesn't being an enemy of the Hokage mean being an enemy of Konoha? This is just a rebellion in a different name, it's just a fancy coat put on itself. He now felt his heart was in a mess. He had never dreamed that there was someone whom he regarded as an elder brother and who had taken care of him all year round and who shared the same ideals as him. At this moment, he has completely changed. At this moment, he has completely become a stranger. Silently, Uchiha Itachi turned his head to the side, his eyes fixed on the huge and towering cliff. He felt that along with Shisui's words, the Uchiha Shisui who was both his teacher and friend in his memory was gone. The gentle Shisui who loved Konoha has fallen to the bottom, and the Shisui who was regarded as a goal by himself has left forever. When the guy in front of him said something like that, he could no longer find the old Shisui, and he felt the grief in his heart almost bursting out of his heart. He suppressed the grief in his heart, raised his head and looked at Shisui quietly. Finally, his thousands of thoughts and words turned into one sentence. Shisui, are you sure you want to give up the dream we once had and go down a path like this? What? Shisui was a little confused by Uchiha Itachi's culture. He didn't know if he said something wrong or didn't explain it clearly. But Uchiha Itachi obviously did not give him a chance to explain. Uchiha Itachi raised his head, and his eyes had turned scarlet. He stared at Shisui intently and continued to ask in a tough tone. Are you sure you want to fight against the village? Are you sure you want to disrupt the peace of the village? Are you sure you want to bring your family and the village into the abyss? After asking this question, Shisui's expression changed. He could see that Itachi in front of him seemed unable to understand their thoughts at all, and was not willing to understand their thoughts at all. He seemed to have determined that the family could only integrate into Konoha in a peaceful way, and everything they did seemed to push the family and Konoha into the abyss. This situation made Shisui look very unhappy. He used to think so too, but now he has changed under Yuhara's guidance. He seemed to have heard from the elders of the sect that Itachi was a man of strong will and would not change easily. Such a firm will can make him a great ninja, but once a problem arises, he may become someone who goes all the way to the end. Itachi, listen to me. Shisui was a little anxious. His feelings for Itachi were sincere, and he still wanted to try to win him back. Stop talking, Shisui. But before Shisui could finish, Itachi interrupted him. You want to fight against the village. You want to use your so-called combination to make the will of all the tribesmen go against the village. Disrupting the peace of the village and even dragging irrelevant people into it, then. Having said that, the three Magatama Sharingan in Uchiha Itachi's eyes began to spin rapidly. I will never allow it. I will not let your plan harm my family or the entire village. You have to get past me first. After he finished speaking, Uchiha Itachi looked at Shisui deeply. He trusted Shisui more than the third Hokage. But from today on, he felt that he could no longer trust Shisui. He has his obsession. He hopes that the village will be peaceful and stable, and he hopes that his younger brother can grow up safely in the village. He didn't want any problems in his family or the village. What he longed for was a true peace. Uchiha Itachi turned around and left silently. He felt that there seemed to be some changes in his eyes, but he was so sad that he had no time to pay attention to these things. Shisui looked at Itachi's back and sighed helplessly. He didn't know if there was anything wrong with what he said. In fact, the point of view he expressed was the same as Yuhara's. That is, you can't always compromise, but you can't always be tough either. The family wants to integrate into the village, not be servile, they just want Konoha to hear their voices. Taking a deep breath, Shisui closed his eyes silently. After a long time, he smiled bitterly and shook his head. It seems that Yuhara was right not to let me tell anyone about him or all the plans. End of this chapter. Chapter 48 Shisui and #039's determination. Chapter 48 Shisui's determination. It seems that Itachi rejected your invitation. Didn't you explain it to him clearly? I'm sorry, Yuhara, I can't convince him. Maybe I didn't express myself clearly, which is why he doesn't agree with our idea. In a room with elegant decoration, Yuhara, Shisui, Uchiha Myun, Uchiha Takatoshi and others were sitting together, and Shisui looked quite remorseful. Shisui had already narrated the entire process of his meeting with Itachi and how he had expressed it. Whether it was Yuhara or the other elders, after hearing this, they all felt that there was nothing wrong with it. Shisui's retelling neither revealed the existence of Yuhara nor what they were going to do next, it just explained something that almost everyone in the clan understood. That is, the family cannot be weak but also cannot be arrogant. What they seek is peace and fairness, and they want Konoha to hear their voices, that's all. But judging from Uchiha Itachi's reaction to Shisui's words, he seemed to have only heard that Uchiha wanted to rebel against the Hokage in Konoha. But the problem is, Hokage and Konoha are one, but they can be separated. They are rebelling against Hokage, but they are not against Konoha. They want everyone in Konoha to hear their voices, but they don't want to go to war with Konoha. Uchiha Itachi's attitude really gave them a headache, and Uchiha Itachi's attitude was also extremely obvious, that is, he firmly opposed these changes. He was extremely opposed to the conflict between the family and the village, and he longed to reach a consensus between the village and the family in a peaceful way. I've actually said a long time ago that Itachi is a determined person and he won't change his position or ideas easily. Uchiha Zone sighed helplessly. He didn't say anything too harsh because it was completely unnecessary. He knew very well what the relationship between Shisui and Itachi was. They grew up together, and this incident had a great impact on Shisui. He naturally didn't want to continue rubbing salt into Shisui's wounds. He also knew that it was Yuhara who wanted to try to win over Itachi, and now that he had failed, there was no need to dwell on this matter. Forget about the failure. It's not your fault. Maybe it's because I didn't let you finish your words. I'll go meet him next time. Looking at Shisui's self-blaming look, Yuhara couldn't help but shook his head, and then he spoke to comfort him. To be honest, he was not too disappointed with Uchiha Itachi's decision, although it was a pity that he couldn't let this guy with the potential of Mangekyo follow him. But Yuhara is not someone who is overly entangled. He has potential but it is not really activated. What's more, this guy's thoughts are actually very extreme. Although Shisui behaved a little cowardly at the most desperate and critical moment. But in the end, he didn't do anything outrageous. But Uchiha Itachi was able to cold-bloodedly wipe out his entire clan, leaving only his beloved younger brother. Even if from Konoha's perspective, Uchiha Itachi's behavior is called sacrificing his own family for the sake of justice, but is Konoha really right? Shaking his head, Yuhara was too lazy to think about this guy anymore. Whether it was a misunderstanding or his own decision, he had to fulfill his own choice. This is a cruel world and you must be responsible for your own choices. Thank you for your comfort, I'm fine, Yuhara. Shisui forced a smile, then he took a deep breath and spoke seriously. It's a pity that Itachi made such a choice, but there are some things we can't control. Having said that, Shisui paused slightly, and then his expression became more serious. So all we have to do is look forward and do our best. Only in this way can we let him know that we are right and that our choice is correct. Looking at Shisui's expression, Yuhara couldn't help but nodded in the end. What would it matter if it just proved that they were right? Could it be possible that Uchiha Itachi could come back to find them? Even if he really comes back, Yuhara can accept it, but whether these elders can accept it is another question. Apart from that, Yuhara had no doubt that he would report this matter. Even if what he reported was not a big deal, it would still cause a huge grudge. Just ask, which family doesn't hate traitors? But when he thought of the traitor, Yuhara looked at Shisui unconsciously again. This guy was originally a traitor, right? What's wrong, Yuhara? Shisui naturally noticed Yuhara's gaze, and seeing the gaze, Shisui felt a little uncomfortable. Nothing, just thinking about something. Yuhara immediately shook his head, but after thinking for a while, he suddenly asked. If Uchiha Itachi chooses to go against us, just like what he said to you, and he takes actual action for it, what will you do? Shisui also relayed Uchiha Itachi's threatening words, and Yuhara and the elders naturally knew about it. And Yuhara's question made the elders look at Shisui with some interest. They were also curious about how Shisui would face his brother. I will stop him. I won't let him get in our way. Without any hesitation, Shisui spoke in a deep voice. If things really come to an inevitable point, I will not show any mercy. He has his beliefs, and I have mine. Even though I still treat him as my brother, there are some things I won't give in to. Shisui's attitude was very firm, and his attitude also made Yuhara and the elders smile. No one wants to cause any trouble during this period of time, especially since they have already completed the basic deployment. The conflicts and disputes between the moderates and the hardliners have been significantly improved with Yuhara's coordination and their mutual compromise. And Yuhara has basically visited and contacted the lowest level people in the Uchiha clan. Yuhara also understands their situation and their needs. Under such circumstances, all they have to do is to attack Uchiha Fugaku at the clan meeting tomorrow night. Attacking the clan leader and even forcing him to abdicate is a first in the history of the Uchiha clan. To be honest, they were a little worried about this kind of thing, but they were relieved only because of the 2 kaleidoscopes. If something went wrong with one of the kaleidoscopes at this point in time, and the one who affected it was the patriarch's son, everyone would be worried. But fortunately, Shisui did not let them down. He did not let them down this time. You don't need to do such a cruel thing. You don't need to prove anything. We all believe in you. Hahara patted Shisui's shoulder, then continued with a smile on his face. If necessary, I will face him, at least I won't have too many old feelings with him. You need to adjust your state. Tomorrow night is the day of the clan meeting, and tomorrow is also the most important time for us. Indeed, the clan meeting tomorrow night would be the beginning of the Uchiha's transformation, and Shisui had to adjust his state to face any possible emergencies. The Uchiha's change will start from tomorrow. Shisui silently clenched his fists, although he became like this because of his communication with Itachi. But no matter what, Shisui has already firmly decided on this path, and he will not change it no matter what. Just like he said, he needed to look forward, he needed to do the best he could, he needed to show Itachi who was right. I'll show you, Itachi. In fact, it is really difficult to deal with Itachi. On the one hand, Itachi is very strong, and on the other hand, this guy is indeed cold-blooded. Considering that there are only a few months left before the clan is exterminated, and the Sandaime said that Itachi would think from the perspective of the Hokage since he was a child. So if he brought his own perspective into the Hokage to examine Shisui, the result would naturally be bad. And judging from the genocide, he was indeed very determined in his desire for peace, but his methods were also extremely extreme and cold-blooded. So in the end it was decided to let him leave Konoha and Uchiha first. After all, Uchiha Itachi is not as good as him without the Mangekyo. And it's hard to deal with Akatsuki without someone in it. We can't let Shisui go in hiding again. The old book says that Shisui went there. As for why he was not brainwashed since childhood, on the one hand, it was mentioned in the previous article that Itachi ignored the protagonist, and on the other hand, he was the son of the clan leader. How could he be easily approached? P.S. Please collect and read on. Thank you everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 49 Beginning. Chapter 49 Beginning. Nanga Shrine is the forbidden area and ancestral land of the Uchiha clan. It is only opened when the Uchiha clan holds a clan meeting. Normally, only the clan leader can enter. When Uchiha Madara was the patriarch, the Uchiha clan was ruled by him alone, and clan meetings were just formalities. After all, Uchiha Madara's strength is there. It is no exaggeration to say that Uchiha Madara is definitely the most powerful person in the Uchiha clan in the past 100 years. It's just a pity that a terrifying guy also appeared in the Senju clan, the arch-enemy of the Uchiha clan, and this guy is capable of beating Uchiha Madara. Although in Yuhara's memory, the final battle between Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama was that both of them looked exhausted. However, Hashirama Senju can still launch a backstab in such a situation. It can be imagined that although the two are equally matched, Hashirama Senju has the upper hand overall. Even if the advantage is small, it is still a big gap considering the strength of the two. Moreover, in the long struggle between the two, it was basically Hashirama Senju who had the upper hand. So the first Hokage of Konoha was Hashirama Senju. In addition to Uchiha Madara's personality, his combat power was also a factor, right? However, the Senju clan is no longer there, but the Uchiha clan is still there, but it has reached an extremely dangerous point. Moreover, the current Uchiha no longer has the domineering Uchiha Madara of the past. In fact, in the history of Uchiha, perhaps only Uchiha Madara did not need to convene a clan meeting, because the clan leaders before him were not as powerful as him. Therefore, most of the family affairs need to be discussed at the family meetings held every once in a while, and only after the discussion will they consider whether to implement them. Although the clan leader also has the power to veto and make decisions, especially on some very critical matters, generally very few clan leaders would do so. Hainhara Shizuka and Shisui walked towards the Nanga shrine together. At this time, they were both somewhat nervous. After all, what they are going to do tonight is probably unprecedented in the entire Uchiha clan. However, both of them are qualified ninjas and they can control their emotions. Are you nervous? Suddenly, Yuhara asked with a smile. After all, things tonight are not simple. I'm a little nervous, but I believe everything will be fine with you here. Shisui took a deep breath and then slowly answered. I hope nothing goes wrong today. Yuhara nodded, and then he continued to ask, by the way, will Itachi come to the clan meeting? Normally, he will come. Shisui nodded, but soon his expression became extremely solemn. But I won't let him in. This clan meeting is very important. Yu Yuan and the elders believe that everything that happened in it should not be spread out before the problem is completely solved. No one wants to cause any trouble, and no one wants someone to use this incident to do something bad after it gets out. Only when they have sorted out everything will they announce it to the outside world. As a member of the Umbu, Uchiha Itachi has clearly stated his position, so Yuhara will not allow him to participate in this clan meeting no matter what. Even if he is the son of Uchiha Fugaku, even if he has the 3 Magatama Sharingan, it is still not allowed. The Uchiha clan is a family that takes the Sharingan as its glory. In the eyes of the members of the Uchiha family, only those members who have awakened the Sharingan can be considered true members of the Uchiha clan and can have a certain say in the family. Therefore, to participate in the clan meeting of Nanga Shrine, there is a prerequisite, that is, only the clan members who have awakened the Sharingan are qualified to appear here and participate in the clan meeting. Thank you for your hard work. Yuhara smiled gently at Shisui, then he took a deep breath and said seriously, it's time, let's create an era that belongs to us. As soon as he finished speaking, Yuhara pushed open the door first, and Shisui nodded seriously and followed Yuhara in. As the gate was opened, the Uchiha clan members who were already sitting inside the shrine turned their heads involuntarily to look at Yuhara and Shisui. But when they saw Yuhara and Shisui, they couldn't help but look away, then lowered their heads slightly and dared not look at the two of them. Every family member is aware of Shisui's reputation, and young people, both moderate and hardline, have to admit how powerful he is. Especially the moderate members, they are more aware of Shisui's strength and his status in the Uchiha clan. As for Uchiha Hanahara, although he has been as famous as Shisui since childhood, he chose to become a mission ninja instead of joining any force of the family, even the guard department. Yuhara's name began to be slowly downplayed in the family. Although the young people among them still had a good impression of Yuhara, they all had a consensus. That means that Yuhara probably won't be able to catch up with Shisui. No matter how good their relationship is, the gap between them will only get bigger. However, what no one could have imagined was that Yuhara suddenly underwent a drastic change a few months ago. Afterwards, he inexplicably gained the support of Shisui and the trust of the elders. The most important thing was that he was also an Uchiha with the Mangekyo Sharingan. This information really surprised them all, and what shocked them even more was that even the hardline guys chose to support him. Moreover, those guys also worked with us to modify many of the ideas they originally held. All these changes are so fast that it is hard to keep up. What was most unimaginable to them was that what they had to do now was to overthrow the current clan leader and make Yuhara, a 15-year-old boy, the new clan leader. But they had to admit that after listening to what the elders and Shisui told them about Habara's point of view, they also felt that Habara was right. The Uchiha clan does need to change. Their current clan leader is indeed unqualified, and they do need to do something. The moderates already have this idea and agree with Yuhara, let alone the hardliners. After all, those who could sit here had all been taught a lesson by Yuhara, and they had even witnessed Yuhara's Mangekyo Sharingan with their own eyes. They will probably never forget the strange patterns in Yuhara's eyes, nor will they forget the azure Susanoo that is taken on a human form and covers Yuhara's body. That night, Yuhara was like Ashura, and their confidence was shattered to pieces by Yuhara. Now they all have reason to support Yuhara. Not only do Yuhara's words and ideas make them understand their own problems, but more importantly, Yuhara's strength is worthy of their following. Among those present, the only one who looked somewhat solemn was Uchiha Fugaku, who was sitting on the seat of the clan leader. He stared at Yuhara and Shisui, and for a moment, a myriad of thoughts ran through his mind. End of this chapter. Chapter 50 Impeachment. Chapter 50 Impeachment. Although Uchiha Fugaku was weak and indecisive as the clan leader, this does not affect the fact that some people in the clan still follow him. At this time, Uchiha Fugaku was also full of doubts and worries. He had also heard about what had happened in the family in the past month. He had no idea why two factions with extremely opposing ideologies would get together and even show a tendency to reconcile. This seemed completely incomprehensible to him. He had been the clan leader for so long that he naturally knew to what extent the two factions had become incompatible. The fact that both sides did not actually fight was because they were still concerned about the family rules. Of course, it might also be because of the existence of this kid Uchiha Shisui. Others may not know much about Shisui. They only know that he is very strong, but they don't know why he is so strong. But as elders, they naturally couldn't be unaware that Shisui was the one who possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan. However, everything is different now. The young people on both sides began to communicate, and the elders on both sides began to sit down and talk. Such changes really exceeded Uchiha Fugaku's understanding. Normally this is actually a good thing. After all, he also longs for peace in his family. It's just that he couldn't do it before and didn't know how to do it. But such harmony was completely beyond his control, and such harmony excluded him. There must be something wrong when something is abnormal. There may not be such a saying in this world, but it has a similar meaning. In particular, Uchiha Fugaku also noticed that there was a figure hidden in such a thing, and the owner of this figure was Uchiha Hana. There is no doubt that Uchiha Hanahara is the genius of the family. He and Shisui are classmates, and he experienced the cruelty of war on the battlefield at a young age. Moreover, after that, Yuhara opened the 3 Magatama Sharingan and passed the assessment to become a member of Konoha's Jonin. Such a young man has a bright future no matter how you look at it, but this kid seems to be very different from other Uchiha clan members since he was a child. Not only is his personality different, but even his choices are different from others. He did not join any faction of the family, nor did he join the guard department, but instead became a mission ninja. How can Uchiha Fugaku feel at ease when such a person who seems to be somewhat incompatible with the family members is now mixed up with people from these factions? Today's clan meeting made him feel uneasy from the very beginning, but no matter how uneasy he felt, he had to calm himself down. Because he is the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, chief, everyone is here. I think we can start. Just when Uchiha Fugaku was lost in thought, Uchiha Takatoshi suddenly spoke. This voice brought Uchiha Fugaku back to his senses, but he quickly shook his head. Wait a minute, Itachi is back, I think he should come over. Sorry, clan leader, we don't want Itachi to participate this time. As soon as Uchiha Fugaku finished speaking, Uchiha Muniya stood up and said softly. Uchiha Mune's words made Uchiha Fugaku frown slightly, and the uneasiness in his heart became even more serious. Not letting his son, Uchiha Itachi, who possessed the 3 Magatama Sharingan, to participate, and the person who said this was actually Uchiha's own, which made Uchiha Fugaku extremely shocked. Who is Uchiha's own? This guy is the elder of the moderate faction, and he gradually gained the dominance of their faction because he trained Uchiha Shisui. Strictly speaking, his son Itachi was following him, but now he actively refused to let Itachi participate, and he was with Uchiha Takatoshi. Everyone knows about this unexpected turn of events. I'm afraid that what's happening tonight will be much more troublesome than imagined. What do you mean? Before Uchiha Fugaku could speak, a young man sitting in the crowd suddenly spoke up in dissatisfaction. The son of the clan leader will also be our clan leader in the future. What qualifications do you have? Hirano, don't talk. The young man was interrupted by Uchiha Fugaku before he could finish his words. This young man is considered to be a follower of Uchiha Fugaku. He is a loyal and traditional person, and his strength is not bad, but his vision is a little low. Now this situation is a decision made jointly by the elders of the two factions. If a clan member who only works in the guard department speaks up to refute, isn't this fatal? Although Uchiha Fugaku is the clan leader and can strongly oppose, he is unwilling to imagine what will happen after the opposition, let alone see it. The family was already in chaos, and he didn't want it to get any more chaotic. Clan leader Uchiha Hirano wanted to say something, but he was soon interrupted by Uchiha Fugaku. Since it is the request of the two elders, I will respectfully obey your orders. Uchiha Fugaku said calmly, also, Hirano is just a young man, he is not very sensible, I hope you two will not mind. After Uchiha Fugaku finished speaking, he looked at the two of them quietly. His attitude had been expressed very clearly, and Uchiha Hirano seemed to have realized his impulse. Although the boy was still a little indignant, he calmed down and for a moment the entire meeting place in the shrine was exceptionally silent. Don't worry, Hirano-kun is also considering the clan leader. Uchiha Takatoshi shook his head, and then he continued, can we start? Let's get started. Uchiha Fugaku took a deep breath, and then said indifferently, I wonder what the two of you want to discuss this time. Uchiha Fugaku was obviously a little emotional, but even with his emotions he was able to endure it. After all, this was for the peace of the family. This clan meeting is very important. After discussing with the clan elders, we all feel that the current situation needs to be discussed carefully. Uchiha Takatoshi said lightly, then he turned to look at Yuhara who was sitting with Shisui. Hawahara-kun, come here. You are the protagonist of this clan meeting. Following Uchiha Takatoshi's words, everyone turned towards Yuhara, and those who already knew what was going to happen seemed very calm. The few who didn't know seemed a little confused. Uchiha Fugaku was one of the confused people, but his inner anxiety was becoming more and more serious. He could feel that this time the incident was probably aimed at him. After all, the two factions had united together and avoided him. He even stopped his own son outside, which already explained a big problem, but now he was also wondering what these people were going to do. What is the purpose of pushing Yuhara out? And isn't this kid Shisui the same as him? Could it be that Shisui has already had new ideas? Amidst all these doubts, Yuhara stood up and walked to the center of the venue. He first nodded slightly to Uchiha Takatoshi and Uchiha Mune, and finally he looked at Uchiha Fugaku. Everyone, I think you all know me, so I don't need to introduce myself. Although I personally don't want to stand here, the situation within the clan has become so serious that I can't look straight at it. The one who caused all this was our patriarch. I am standing here today with the purpose of impeaching our clan leader, Uchiha Fugaku. It's strange, I clearly set it to upload automatically, why didn't it upload? End of this chapter. Chapter 51 Do you want to dance too? Chapter 51 Do you want to dance too? Even though they were mentally prepared, Yuhara's words still caused an uproar among everyone present, but the degree of the uproar was different. Impeaching the clan leader, this is something that has never happened in the history of the Uchiha clan. Now that such a thing is happening before them, how can they remain calm? Uchiha Fugaku's face also looked a little unhappy. He had already thought that this clan meeting would be related to him, but he did not expect that it would be to impeach him as the clan leader. Having been the clan leader for so long, he thought that although he had not done a good enough job in the position of clan leader, at least he had ensured a slight harmony between the family and the village. He also prevented any faction within the clan from becoming too powerful, forcing the clan to lean towards one side. Although such a balance is not safe, at least the family is not in chaos, at least there is no chaos in either the family or the village. Yuhara's direct impeachment of him really made him feel a little overwhelmed. He was also confused about why he was impeached and what kind of agreement they had reached. Uchiha Hanayara, do you know what you are talking about? Uchiha Hirano stood up angrily again, and this time he had opened his Sharingan. In his scarlet eyes, two Magatama were slowly rotating, and all the chakra in his body was gathering, as if he was ready to make a move. Not only him, but other people who followed Uchiha Fugaku also stood up angrily, and like Hirano, they opened their Sharingan. The clan meeting suddenly became tense, but Yuhara remained calm in the face of it all. Of course I know what I'm talking about. I don't need you to remind me. Yuhara shook his head gently and spoke slowly. Put away your Sharingan, it's not good enough for me. Besides, this matter is not something you and your group can get involved in, so please sit down. Uchiha Yuhara, don't think you are so great just because you are a genius. Who do you think you are? Can you comment on the clan leader? However, contrary to expectations, Uchiha Yushiro, who was standing behind Uchiha Hirano, also spoke angrily. Uchiha Yushiro was a captain of the guard department and he was also a staunch supporter of Uchiha Fugaku. Yuhara remembered that in the original work, this guy was kicked away by Uchiha Itachi. However, these things have not happened yet, and Uchiha Yushiro has already walked towards Yuhara. Don't think you can talk big here just because you have the 3 Magatama Sharingan. You are just a little kid. I want to see how powerful you are and whether you can boast here without shame. As soon as he finished speaking, Uchiha Yushiro had already taken action, but this guy did not take out his weapon, and it can be seen that he still had some restraint. Just by taking action in a place like this, one can see how crazy this guy is, which made Yuhara frown involuntarily. In an instant, Yuhara's eyes turned scarlet, and at this moment, Uchiha Yushiro felt a strange power emanating from Yuhara's eyes. Illusion? Uchiha Yushiro sneered in his heart. Using illusion on an Uchiha who had opened the Sharingan was definitely not a wise choice. Even though Yuhara already had a 3 Magatama Sharingan at this point, he used the illusion in such a hurry that he had already activated his Sharingan. Then even if the illusion has any effect on oneself, it will definitely not be too strong, and it is normal that there will be no effect at all. However, the next moment, Uchiha Lord Yushiro's face froze, because at this moment he only felt his brain was in a trance. And in his sight, at this moment, the only thing left was Yuhara's pair of scarlet 3 Magatama Sharingan. Boom! At this moment, a muffled sound suddenly rang in Uchiha Yushiro's ears, and he also felt a sharp pain in his chest at this moment. Such intense pain made his consciousness return to his body, but at this moment he found that his body was flying backwards. It was not until he fell heavily to the ground that he realized he had failed. Whether I am talking nonsense or not is not for you to judge. At this moment, Yuhara's voice came into his ears again, still so calm but making him grit his teeth in hatred. And you also have no right to stand in front of me and say anything big or harsh. I told you that this is not something you can participate in. Just stay here honestly. You. Uchiha Yoshiro's face looked extremely ugly. He wanted to say something, but as soon as he opened his mouth, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. This made it impossible for him to finish a complete sentence. He could only hold his chest and gasp for breath. You bastard! Uchiha Hirano couldn't bear it anymore at this moment. He quickly rushed towards Yuhara's position and punched Yuhara in the chest. His eyes were bloodshot and his movements were extremely sharp, but at the same time he tried his best to avoid looking into Yuhara's eyes. The tragic plight of the Uchiha 8th Hokage was right before his eyes, so it was naturally impossible for him to repeat the same mistake. However, what no one expected was that this time, Yuhara just stood there without moving at all, just watching his fist land on his chest quietly. Boom! There was a muffled sound, but this time Yuhara did not react at all, because a blue halo had appeared on his chest at some point. It was obvious that this was chakra, and this piece of chakra completely blocked Uchiha Hirano's fist, making it impossible for him to actually hit Yuhara. It seems that this ninja technique, air shield, is quite effective. Yuhara watched everything in front of him silently. Just after he performed the illusion, he clearly felt his chakra gathering invisibly in front of him. The strength of this chakra shield is very high, and seems to be proportional to the strength of one's own chakra. This is why Yuhara would stand there and watch this guy attack. He wanted to see how the shield could perform against physical attacks, and it turned out that the shield performed very well. After all, Uchiha Ping did not break Yuhara's chakra shield at all, and the strength and quality of this shield are still intact. Is this all you can do? Yuhara looked at Uchiha Hirano calmly, and he suddenly asked softly. Uchiha Hirano's expression was extremely ugly, and after hearing these words, his expression became even more stiff. He quickly withdrew his hand and tried to retreat, but at this moment Yuhara grabbed this guy's hand. Then, without waiting for this guy to react, Yuhara's knee had already hit him hard in the abdomen. Uchiha Hirano felt pain and his body bent slightly subconsciously, but at this moment Yuhara's hand began to exert force. Crack! With a slight twist of his hand, Yuhara skillfully dislocated Uchiha Hirano's hand. Then he shook off Uchiha Hirano's hand and grabbed the guy's throat. Are you turning a deaf ear to what I said? Or do you want to dance too? End of this chapter. Chapter 52 Uchiha and #039's characteristics. Chapter 52 Uchiha's characteristics. Stop. Uchiha Hanayara, what are you doing? Let him go quickly. Yuhara knocked down Uchiha Yoshiro in an instant and grabbed Uchiha Hirano's neck, which immediately caused great dissatisfaction among Uchiha Fugaku's supporters. Many of them stood up quickly and surrounded Yuhara. The scarlet in their eyes has also appeared, and those Sharingans look so strange in this shrine. And as they moved, the atmosphere in the entire shrine became suffocating, as if a powder keg was about to be ignited at any time. Uchiha Fugaku was also frowning at this time, although he did feel dissatisfied with Yuhara's impeachment of him. But at the same time, he was also dissatisfied with Uchiha Yoshiro and Uchiha Hirano's unscrupulous actions. Although their actions seemed to be protecting themselves, they were actually hurting themselves. But he really couldn't blame them for anything. The worst thing was that not only did their actions not have any practical effect, but they also lost so miserably and caused an even larger commotion. Such a result really gave Uchiha Fugaku a headache. Although he was really dissatisfied, he still had to protect those who supported him. However, just as he was about to stand up, he suddenly discovered that Shisui and the moderates had already stood up. Not only them, but the hardliners also stood up. The Sharingan in their eyes has quietly blossomed, and his eyes have been fixed on his supporters, and their chakra has also begun to surge. Uchiha Fugaku was stunned when he saw this scene, and then he fell silent again. He knew that Yuhara was very close to these two factions, and that he had the support of both factions to impeach him. But in his opinion, Yuhara was most likely just a person pushed forward by these two factions. If he succeeded, the benefits would naturally go to these two factions, and if he failed, it would not have much to do with them. But now it seems that the situation is not what he imagined. He really didn't expect that the two factions would support Yuhara so strongly. This doesn't look like just pushing Yuhara to the forefront, this is clearly giving Yuhara the greatest support. Not only Uchiha Fugaku was confused, even Uchiha Fugaku's supporters were also a little confused. They had no idea what was going on, but he knew very well that they were probably in danger. Don't worry, I will let him go. Yuhara didn't have many ideas at all, because it didn't matter to him whether these people came up or not, and he really had no further plans. Teaching these unscrupulous guys a lesson is already the limit. If someone really died, the result would be different. Looking at Uchiha Hirano, whose face had turned a little purple, Yuhara gently loosened his hand, and this guy immediately began to cover his neck and gasp for breath. Although his eyes were filled with anger at this moment, there was also a hint of fear in this anger. Yuhara ignored him completely. He turned his head and looked at Shisui, then he said with a smile. Shisui, it's okay, lead everyone back to sit down, this is a clan meeting, not a martial arts arena. Everyone, please retreat. Yuhara is right. This is a clan gathering, not a martial arts arena. At this time, Uchiha Fugaku had also recovered. Although he was a little weak, he also spoke. Yoshiro, you and Hirano should go for treatment together. You are not allowed to go out for the next month. Stay at home and reflect on your behavior. You have been too reckless. This is the patriarch. Although Yoshiro and Hirano seemed very unconvinced when they heard Uchiha Fugaku's words, they still nodded obediently when they saw the current situation. In fact, they were not really stupid. They knew how much trouble their actions would cause. But their purpose was clear, which was to maintain the prestige of the clan leader. It was just that they really didn't expect that Yun, a 15-year-old boy, would be so powerful. There is indeed a qualitative difference between the 3 Magatama Sieluan and the 2 Magatama Sharingan, but these are never what ninjas consider. Chakra reserves, practical experience, the use of techniques and tactics, and intelligence information are the necessary conditions for a ninja to defeat his opponent. Otherwise, there wouldn't be anyone in the ninja world who doesn't have the Sharingan who can defeat these Uchiha. However, the cruel reality told them that even though Yuhara was only 15 years old, he was not comparable to them. Supporting each other and keeping their heads down, the two of them quickly left the room. At this time, everyone had sat down again, and the entire shrine had returned to peace again, as if the conflict just now had never existed. However, those who supported Uchiha Fugaku, no matter how dissatisfied they were with Yuhara, had a slightly different look in their eyes when they looked at Yuhara. The Uchiha clan has always been a family that respects the strong. Although Yuhara's previous performance did not show much strength, the people he faced were not mediocre. He took care of his opponents so easily. With such strength and ability, even if they were dissatisfied, they still had some respect for him in their hearts. It was this kind of respect that made them keep quiet and start to listen carefully to why Yu Yuan wanted to impeach their clan leader. Habara, I'm sorry for everything that happened just now. I hope you don't mind. They were just a little anxious. Uchiha Fugaku sighed slightly, then he looked at Yuhara and spoke seriously. They have already left, so the clan will continue. You said you wanted to impeach me, but I believe I have been doing my job conscientiously as the clan leader. Although I haven't achieved anything noteworthy, I haven't done anything to let my family down. You must have a good reason to impeach me, so please tell me, where have I failed to be a qualified clan leader? Although Uchiha Fugaku's attitude seemed indifferent, he still showed some demeanor as a clan leader. Moreover, his attitude was somewhat beyond Yuhara's expectations. Yuhara imagined that this guy would most likely be hysterical or extremely angry. But the current calm and peaceful state of affairs made Yuhara feel a little overwhelmed. But no matter what his attitude is, Yuhara must continue with this matter today. Looking at Uchiha Fugaku seriously, Yuhara finally nodded slightly, and then he shook his head. It is undeniable that Patriarch Fugaku has done his job conscientiously. If it were normal times, perhaps Patriarch Fugaku would be an excellent patriarch. However, the current environment of Uchiha and the current situation within Konoha, this is not a normal period. Recommended a book by a friend, Konoha, there is a yellow monkey in my body. The salary is in place, pain is out of business. What? No money? Then I have no choice but to destroy Konoha. Naruto turned into light and floated above Konoha. Countless lasers fell from the sky, turning Konoha into ruins. Everything changed when the Navy Admiral Kizaru Borsalino appeared in the space inside Naruto's body. How scary! Naruto spoke slowly, and then kicked the third generation away. Ape like Naruto, P.S. I am a newbie and I am asking for your collection and reading. Please help me QAQ. End of this chapter. Chapter 53. Are you really a qualified patriarch? Chapter 53. Are you really a qualified patriarch? Yuhara's words seemed to be helping Uchiha Fugaku to shirk some unnecessary responsibilities, but anyone who could understand knew that this was the biggest accusation against Uchiha Fugaku. The meaning of his words was very clear, which was to tell everyone that Uchiha Fugaku might be a good clan leader in normal times. But at the critical moment, Uchiha Fugaku was really unable to perform the role of clan leader. Uchiha Fugaku obviously understood what Yuhara said, and his expression became inexplicably ugly. However, he was still able to control his emotions. He just looked at Yuhara quietly without interrupting. He was also angry now, and he wanted to find out why he couldn't do it. My Lord Patriarch, and everyone present here, the clan is now facing an unprecedented crisis, and I think the elders should have noticed this a long time ago. Since I was attacked by the root ninjas, I think everyone understands what Konoha's attitude is, right? Yuhara ignored Uchiha Fugaku's mood changes. He just sighed slightly and then slowly spoke. Konoha wants to force us to take action because Konoha knows that the family has split into two factions, and one of the factions advocates using force to take back everything that the Uchiha lost. It is conceivable that if they succeeded in a surprise attack on me and left me nowhere to be found, alive or dead, and Konoha flatly denied that they did it. The emotions within the family have been mobilized again, and have begun to lean towards the hardliners. So I think the only thing the Patriarch can do in the end is to support the hardliners, right? With such a resultant environment, Konoha also has the evidence of Uchiha's rebellion. Guess what will happen next? Having said this, Yuhara paused slightly, his eyes remained on Uchiha Fugaku, and he was observing the changes in Uchiha Fugaku's expression. However, what made him feel helpless was that Uchiha Fugaku did not have any obvious changes in expression. Maybe he already knew the result, or maybe he just didn't believe it. But Yuhara doesn't care. Some things Yuhara will continue with, and some things will inevitably be changed. My answer is simple. It is the annihilation of the entire race. Yuhara gave the most horrifying answer in the most calm tone, and all the members present, whether moderate or hardliners, looked extremely ugly. The hardliners present had been taught a lesson by Yuhara that night, and had also heard Yuhara talk about similar things, so their situation was slightly better at this time. However, those moderates and those who supported Uchiha Fugaku were somewhat unbelievable and found it very difficult to accept. They never dreamed that there would be such an answer. Uchiha Yuhara, what nonsense are you talking about? Stop exaggerating here. Uchiha Inahori, the captain of the guard department and also a supporter of Uchiha Fugaku, spoke at this time. Besides, even if something like this happens, I believe the clan leader will lead us through it. It's a pity that he couldn't do it and never did it. Yuhara didn't even have the desire to look at this guy who was also kicked away by Uchiha Itachi. He continued to tell the story slowly and firmly. Perhaps everyone is wondering why it has become like this? There are two reasons for this. The first is the second-generation Hokage. From the perspective of family history, he has always hated Uchiha. From the perspective of the village, there was the incident in which Uchiha Madara attacked the village with the Nine Tails, which ultimately led to his death along with the Shodame Hokage. These two aspects combined naturally made Senju Tobarama full of hatred for Uchiha. Don't look at the fact that he first established the guard department to allow the family to obtain huge power. At the same time, he also accepted Uchiha Kagami as his disciple, but in fact, this was simply a trap for Uchiha. Accepting Senior Jing as a disciple can make us relax our vigilance, and setting up a security department and tying it to the prison will naturally keep us away from the political center. Moreover, whether it is Senior Jing or the security department, they can form an effective surrounding us and monitoring us. Don't you see it clearly now? Hahara couldn't help but sigh when he said this, and the faces of all the Uchiha present, except for the elders and Shisui, became ugly. They really wanted to refute what Yuhara said, but they didn't know how to refute it all of a sudden. Uchiha Fugaku also seemed very silent. It was obvious that there were some things he could understand and see clearly, and these things left him with no way to refute. The Sandame and his people are the successors to the Nidame's will. I think this kind of hostility should be retained. Yuhara gathered his thoughts and continued speaking, but this time his tone became much stronger. As for what happened to the Hyuga clan a few years ago, I think everyone here knows about it. Let me ask you, if something like this happened to our family, would you be able to bear it? This is the second reason. The Hyuga clan is dissatisfied, and so are many other families. If you were the Hokage, what would you do? Killing a chicken to scare the monkey? Everyone should know that, if I am successfully attacked and the family makes a decision, what will be our final fate? Yuhara raised 3 questions in total, and each one was more heart-wrenching, more speechless, and more infuriating than the last. Thinking along the lines of what Yuhara said, the family is indeed facing a huge crisis, and it might even be a disaster of genocide. At this moment, even the clan leader's supporters understood why Uchiha Itachi was not allowed to come in. However, they were still a little confused as to why Shisui was still able to stay here. However, Yuhara did not give them an answer. He stared at Uchiha Fugaku, and his tone became more severe. I don't need to elaborate on the outcome. I said I don't deny that Patriarch Fugaku did a very good job as the Patriarch. It's a pity that you, the clan leader, lack the ability and courage, and your character is weak and your will is not firm. The biggest reason why the family has really reached this point, apart from external factors, is you. The external environment is so severe, but you only think about compromise. The family is so divided, but you have never thought about integration. Chief Fugaku, are you really a qualified chief? Yuhara's words were like a hammer hitting the hearts of everyone present, especially Uchiha Fugaku's heart. He didn't say anything, but looked at Yuhara in silence, because at this moment he didn't know what to say. For a moment, the entire shrine seemed even quieter and more depressing, and everyone was looking at Yuhara and Uchiha Fugaku. They were waiting for Uchiha Fugaku's response, and also waiting for Yuhara to continue his attack. But at this moment, there was a sudden noise outside the shrine. Such noise immediately made everyone frown, even Yuhara was no exception. Soon, a young Uchiha ninja opened the door and walked in, then whispered, "My lords, Lord Itachi is here." We followed the instructions not to let him in, but... Uchiha Itachi? Hearing this name, everyone present had different expressions, but they all turned their eyes to Uchiha Fugaku involuntarily. Uchiha Fugaku also looked unhappy, but before he could speak, Shisui suddenly stood up. "I'll take care of this matter." Ziping said calmly, "Yuhara, you said that the family needs discipline. Even though I regard Itachi as my younger brother, but he must also abide by the family's rules." End of this chapter. Chapter 54. You are really not a qualified patriarch. Chapter 54. You are really not a qualified patriarch. Watching Shisui walk out, Yuhara could only sigh helplessly. He originally thought of going out and solving this problem himself, because he promised Shisui that he could do this kind of thing for him. Of course, this also includes Yuhara's idea of teaching Itachi a lesson. Even if Itachi hasn't really done anything unjust, Dan Yuhara has been worried and frightened for 15 years because of what he did in the original work. During the past 15 years, he had thought about brainwashing Itachi, but he was the clan leader's son and he couldn't possibly have any contact with him. I finally got in touch with him, and I just expressed some of my thoughts vaguely, but this guy ignored me. Shisui was slightly better, as he grew up with Yuhara. However, because Yuhara was too young at the time, there were some things he didn't dare to say casually. Especially if he said something about political stance, he was afraid that if he said it, Shisui would turn around and tell the elders, and then he would be in trouble. Things have to be done step by step. It is impossible to achieve success in one go. Therefore, he always wants to express his position while making plans. One difference between Shisui and Itachi is that although the position expressed by Habara is somewhat conflicting with his, and although he disagrees with some of the implicit words, he can still seek common ground while reserving differences. Therefore, Shisui can accept Yuhara, and their relationship has always been good. This may be the difference between Shisui and Itachi. Shaking his head, Yuhara turned around and looked at Uchiha Fugaku and then continued, "Although some accidents happened, I think Shisui can solve these troubles." Yes, Shisui can solve the problem. Uchiha Fugaku sighed and nodded. "Let's continue the meeting, and please continue, Yuhara-kun. I really want to see how unqualified I am in your eyes." Patriarch Fugaku, your failure lies in your failure to recognize the reality, your compromise, and your indecision. Yuhara was still looking at Uchiha Fugaku, and he continued to speak calmly. As a clan leader, the most important thing is to recognize the reality of your family. May I ask, clan leader Fugaku, do you still remember your decision on the night of the nine-tailed fox? The night of the nine tails was definitely a turning point in the Uchiha's life, becoming worse and worse, and no one could deny that. And everyone who participated that night remembered one thing, that is, Uchiha Fugaku finally listened to the orders of an old man and stopped all support operations. This decision once made many of them question it, but according to Uchiha Fugaku's explanation, this was the order of the third Hokage, and it also cleared them of the suspicion of controlling the Nine Tails. Yuhara brought up this matter again today, which made them a little strange, and Uchiha Fugaku was also strange. "Mr. Yuhara, this is the order of the third Hokage, Uchiha Fugaku began to speak, but was interrupted by Yuhara before he could finish. "No, Patriarch Fugaku, this matter may not be arranged by the third Hokage." Yuhara shook his head slightly and said with a serious expression. "Do you remember that the situation was so bad at that time, the Sandaime Hokage was already on the front line fighting against the Nine-Tails at the first moment? The Nine-Tailed Fox was so dangerous, how could he have the time to issue such an order? Moreover, every bit of extra strength meant a greater chance of defeating the Nine-Tailed Fox. Maybe you will say that Uchiha is suspected of controlling the Nine Tails, but in fact, only if we attack the Nine Tails head-on, this is the best way to clear the suspicion." Uchiha Fugaku opened his mouth after hearing what Yuhara said, but in the end he didn't say a word, and Yuhara didn't stop either. "Also, even if we believe that this was an order from the third Hokage, I want to ask Patriarch Fugaku a question. Who was the Hokage of Konoha 8 years ago? Was it the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, or the fourth Hokage Namikaze Minato? Yuhara's words made Uchiha Fugaku's face change completely, and the faces of everyone present also changed slightly. Indeed, no matter how the order to stop the Uchiha was given by Sarutobi Hiruzen, the most crucial issue is who is the Hokage. Patriarch Fugaku, it is because you failed to recognize the reality that the family missed the best opportunity to prove itself. The chain reaction of this incident was that when the village was rebuilt and divided into areas after the nine-tailed fox incident, the village unscrupulously drove us to a more remote place. The reason is very simple. We have not proved ourselves and have not cleared ourselves of suspicion, but you, the patriarch, have once again made a mistake in this matter. You chose to compromise, you chose to accept it all, you did not choose to reject it all with a strong attitude, you just acquiesced to everything. Yuhara's words were like a sharp sword that pierced everyone's heart. At this moment, their eyes involuntarily turned to Uchiha Fugaku. Even Uchiha Fugaku's most staunch supporters looked at their clan leader at this moment. Uchiha Fugaku clenched his fists, and one could see his inner struggle and pain at this moment, but he did not open his mouth to refute anything at this moment. He didn't know how to refute, and while listening to Yuhara's words, he thought about his past, and he found that what Yuhara said seemed to be really right. As for your indecision. Yuhara looked at Uchiha Fugaku at this moment, he sighed, and his tone was no longer so tough. The situation outside the clan has developed to this point, but within the clan you have never thought about unifying everyone's thoughts and correcting the wrong thoughts within the family. Moderates are too compromising. You have already shown us that peace achieved through compromise will inevitably lead to destruction. But the hardliners are too tough. They don't have a proper goal and just want to take back the glory that belongs to Uchiha. So can this be understood as Uchiha wanting to be enemies with the entire Konoha? Konoha is so big, with so many ninja families. The Uchiha alone is the enemy of the entire Konoha. What can we use to fight them? There are the Hyuga, Inoshikacho, Inazuka, Aburame, and other families like Kurama, as well as the huge number of civilian ninjas. How can we, the Uchiha, go against the entire Konoha? Is our current clan leader still Uchiha Madara? Others can exhaust us to death, but you allow this kind of thinking to continue to grow. You have never thought about integrating family ideas, but instead tried to balance people from two factions. And your actions have made members of both factions believe that they are right, thus causing the family to continue to split and fight among themselves. Every clan meeting is like a vegetable market, and there is no suitable practical solution to solve any problem. The tribe members don't have a correct and clear goal at all, and they don't know what they want. This is the change you, as the tribe leader, have brought to the Uchiha. Having said that, Yuhara paused slightly. He looked at Uchiha Fugaku very seriously, and after a long time he asked softly, Patriarch Fugaku, you are really not a qualified patriarch. Alas, it is really difficult to set the automatic update of Chi-Dian upload. I made a mistake when modifying it and it was too late to regret it. I did it twice. End of this chapter. Chapter 55 Kaleidoscope. Chapter 55 Kaleidoscope. Part. Hainhara continued to impeach Uchiha Fugaku inside the shrine, while Shisui had already arrived outside the shrine. The clan meeting tonight is very important, and Shisui will not allow anyone to disturb him, even if that person is Uchiha Itachi. Moreover, it had been decided from the beginning of the clan meeting that Itachi would not be allowed in. Now that Itachi looked like he was going to force his way in, Shisui naturally wouldn't agree. Walking quickly to the outskirts of the shrine, Shisui saw Itachi being surrounded by people, but soon his brows furrowed. Because he noticed that there were still many of his tribesmen lying on the ground nearby, which could only mean one thing, that Itachi had already taken action. What are you doing? Shisui didn't mention Itachi's question, he asked directly, the clan meeting is going on, why are you making so much noise? Lord Shisui, it was Lord Itachi who tried to break in by force. At this time, an Uchiha ninja spoke with some embarrassment. Although he is an Uchiha ninja, it is obvious that he does not have the Sharingan, so he has no way of entering the clan meeting. Moreover, he really couldn't afford to offend either party. On the one hand, it was an order issued collectively by the elders, and on the other hand, Itachi possessed the Sharingan and was the son of the clan leader. In such a situation, even the clan members who possessed the Sharingan would feel headache and embarrassment, let alone him. Who started it first? Shisui nodded, then asked. We received orders not to allow Lord Itachi to enter, but Lord Itachi tried to break in by force, so we could only stop him. We didn't expect that. The ninja said with his head down. This guy spoke vaguely. He did not explain clearly who did it. It was obvious that he was also full of worries. But Shisui didn't care about these things at all, or he didn't care who started it first. All he wanted was a general idea of what happened and an accurate result. Nodding once again, Shisui looked at Itachi, his expression now showing a hint of complexity. However, he quickly suppressed his complicated emotions, and finally he could only let out a calm sigh. Itachi, you know the rules, you shouldn't have come tonight. Why can't I come? Itachi's tone was also unusually indifferent. He stared at Shisui and said in a deep voice, if you can do it, why can't I? This is the order of the elders, and the clan leader has agreed. Shisui shook his head and finally gave an answer, you don't have to attend the clan meeting tonight. Leave. Don't embarrass me or anyone else. After saying this, Shisui turned around and left. At this moment, he suddenly felt a strong chakra brewing behind him. This immediately made him stop and he slowly turned around, only to see that Uchiha Itachi's eyes had turned extremely scarlet. As expected, you have completely changed, Shisui. Itachi looked at Shisui indifferently, his voice extremely cold. You are no longer the Shisui I remember, and I don't know what has changed you like this. But I want to tell you that you can't stop me from entering. Even if I have the 3 Magatama Sharingan according to the family tradition, I still have the right to enter the clan meeting. Itachi, don't make things difficult for me. Shisui felt bitter inside when he saw Itachi like this, but he remained very calm and determined. I said this is the common opinion of the clan leader and elders. Even if you have 3 Magatama, it won't work. As he spoke, Shisui's eyes had turned into 3 scarlet Magatama. This was his attitude, he wanted to tell Itachi that he could not change this matter. As expected, I can't have any illusions about you, because you are definitely not the brother Shisui that I remember. Uchiha Itachi seemed a little sad when he saw this scene, but also seemed a little relieved. He slowly closed his eyes and his voice was still so cold and indifferent. However, at this moment, an even more bizarre chakra began to bloom on his body, and a strong and cold aura instantly spread around. In that case, we have nothing to say. This is my attitude when I go in. Then let me ask you something. As he spoke, Uchiha Itachi slowly opened his eyes, and a pair of dart-like patterns slowly rotated in his eyes. Are these eyes enough to let me in? Kaleidoscope? Shisui looked at the scene in front of him with a little shock. He really didn't expect that Itachi also had these eyes. But besides being shocked, he suddenly felt more worried. Because he didn't know where Itachi got these eyes, and Itachi's attitude was obviously on the opposite side. After hesitating for a moment, Shisui gritted his teeth and quickly closed his eyes. The next moment when he opened his eyes, the same pair of strange kaleidoscopes appeared. He stared at the chakra gathering in Itachi's body, and at this moment he suddenly spoke, Mangekyo Sharingan, you do have the qualifications to force your way in, but I need to ask you a question. Itachi didn't answer, he just looked at Shisui quietly. And Shisui didn't care, he asked directly, if I ask you not to report everything about tonight's clan meeting, can you do it? Outside the shrine, as Shisui finished his words, the place returned to dead silence once again. The Uchiha ninjas surrounding them had already retreated at this time. They simply could not withstand the aura emanating from these 2 young men. That kind of oppressive and suffocating atmosphere really makes people feel desperate. I understand. After a long time, Uchiha Itachi suddenly spoke, then he turned and left without looking back. This action made Shisui's face turn ugly, and he couldn't help but yelled, Itachi, you. No need to say anything. Uchiha Itachi interrupted Shisui directly. He walked and said slowly, it's really disappointing that it will turn out like this. But I have guessed your thoughts and the final outcome. You guys, take care of yourself. Under the glow of the silver moonlight, Uchiha Itachi's figure became farther and farther away, slowly disappearing from Shisui's sight. It was only at this moment that Shisui felt that his heart seemed to be in great pain. Behind the shrine, the entire venue seemed exceptionally silent, with everyone's eyes fixed on Uchiha Fugaku. At this time, Uchiha Fugaku remained silent. He was recalling his past and wondering whether he was really that unbearable. After a long while, Uchiha Fugaku sighed, raised his head and looked at Yuhara seriously, then asked, "So how are you going to deal with me, the unqualified clan leader?" Since he has been impeached, then naturally Patriarch Fugaku was no longer fit to continue sitting in the position of Patriarch. After saying this, Yuhara turned and looked at Uchiha Takatoshi and Uchiha Mune. "Two elders, I'll trouble you from now on." Uchiha Takatoshi and Uchiha Mune nodded at the same time. They looked at each other and finally Uchiha Mune came out. "In view of the fact that Uchiha Fugaku's actions have put the family in such a difficult situation, we have decided to remove Uchiha Fugaku from the position of clan leader, and..." Having said that, Uchiha Zone took a deep breath, and then his voice began to rise. "We nominate Uchiha Yuhara as the new clan leader." End of this chapter. Chapter 56 Kaleidoscope. Chapter 56 Kaleidoscope. Part. Nominating Yu Yuan as the clan leader was something that had already been decided long ago, and it could be said that it was something that would never be changed. Everyone has selfish desires, and these elders are no exception, but no matter how selfish they are all members of the Uchiha clan. The most typical mentality of the Uchiha clan members is to believe in the strong, when facing Yuhara, who possesses the Mangekyo Sharingan and has the support of Shisui. Even if they have selfish motives, they dare not reveal them, and they will not even reveal them at all, because these selfish motives have been completely shattered. There is actually not much suspense about the next vote. The hardliners were the first to walk behind Yuhara, even though they knew very well that Yuhara did not accept their ideas. In fact, after hearing what Yuhara said, they also noticed the problem. They really did not have a clear goal, and it was really hard to imagine what the end would be for their arrogance in making Konoha their enemy. It's not that they think they are not strong enough. Every Uchiha and even every ninja must be cautious, but they must also be confident at the same time. If they don't have confidence, how can they face strong enemies? But self-confidence and arrogance are two different things. The thought of facing the siege of all the families in Konoha, and a large number of civilian ninjas, would make anyone's scalp tingle. They agreed very much with what Yuhara said. Even if they thought they could win, others could still wear them down to death. Moreover, Yuhara had demonstrated his extraordinary strength, and even their elders were convinced. Naturally, they would not go against Yuhara's words. After the hardliners made their choice, the moderates also silently stood behind Yuhara. In fact, strictly speaking, they were the first group to make the choice, because Shisui had already decided to follow Yuhara. Moreover, their elders had already made the decision. Even though they had not fought with Yuhara, they knew what Yuhara had done on the side of the hardliners. With Shisui's relationship, the support of the elders, and Yuhara's military guarantee, they would not have the slightest hesitation. As the two factions had already taken sides, those who supported Uchiha Fugaku began to make some noise. Many of them had ugly expressions on their faces, and quite a few of them seemed extremely conflicted at this moment. But no matter what choice they make, this matter has basically been completely confirmed, especially at this time Shisui had returned to the shrine, although he looked a little dazed. However, after learning that it was time to vote, he did not hesitate at all and stood directly behind Yuhara. This move means that there is no suspense in the entire voting process. It seems that the result has been decided. Yuhara looked at Uchiha Fugaku and said calmly, "Patriarch Fugaku, do you have anything else to teach me?" Yuhara was not surprised at this result at all. He had spent so much time investing in Shisui and the members of these factions. He even deliberately exposed his kaleidoscope and had a fight with the hardliners. His purpose was to successfully complete this impeachment. Moreover, during the impeachment at the clan meeting, Yuhara once again analyzed the situation of the Uchiha clan from a god's perspective. He has done everything he can. It's like a game of cards. In his eyes, all his opponents are basically playing with open cards. He knows everything and has the help of the system. It would be really strange if this still doesn't get enough support. However, he did not dare to relax at all, because there was still one person that he could not be careless with, and that was Uchiha Fugaku. In terms of family support and prestige, Uchiha Fugaku has already failed. He is unable to withstand such a blow from Yuhara. But the most crucial point is whether this guy has the Mangekyo Sharingan. If he just gave up like that, then everything would be best, but if he was not willing to step down like that and he still had the Mangekyo Sharingan, then Yuhara would probably have to have a fierce battle with him, because this was almost inevitable. The Uchiha clan is a warlike clan, and Yuhara relied on the Mangekyo to get the opportunity to negotiate with these elders. If Uchiha Fugaku also mastered the Mangekyo and used the reason that the clan leader must have sufficient military power, Yuhara would never refuse this. Once he refuses, it will surely be a huge blow to his prestige. Yes, it seems the result has been determined. Uchiha Fugaku nodded, but his next words made Yuhara sigh involuntarily in his heart. He raised his head and looked at Yuhara seriously, and then his eyes began to change strangely. As his eyes turned scarlet, a terrifying aura poured out from him at this moment. His eyes had turned into 3 Magatama state. He looked at Yuhara quietly, then looked at Shisui. After a long time, he spoke slowly. I admit that based on your statement and after deep reflection, I am indeed not a qualified patriarch, and I am willing to resign as patriarch. But Mr. Yuhara, I believe that you are smart enough to be the clan leader. However, the clan leader, especially the Uchiha clan leader, cannot just rely on his brain. You must be strong enough to gain recognition from the entire family. Although your performance just now was excellent, in my opinion it is still not enough, because your Sharingan is not strong enough. Having said this, Uchiha Fugaku stopped, and the 3 Magatama in his eyes began to spin rapidly at this moment, and in just a moment his 3 Magatama had completely merged into one. At this moment, almost all the elders' faces changed drastically, because they really did not expect that Uchiha Fugaku was hiding so deeply. They really never thought that this seemingly weak clan leader actually possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan. Mangekyo Sharingan, this is the strongest state of Sharingan. In fact, I have always been reluctant to show this pair of eyes, because I have always believed that this pair of eyes will bring trouble. Uchiha Fugaku's voice was very soft, but also very resolute. He looked at Yuhara seriously and said earnestly, "You want to become the clan leader. I am actually willing to support you, but I don't think you are good enough. I suggest that Shisui be the candidate for clan leader. Because he also has these eyes, he is qualified, and there is another condition for him to truly become the patriarch, which is to defeat me. Only if you truly defeat the me with these eyes, can you be considered a qualified patriarch?" Hanahara-kun, do you understand what I mean? Yes, I know. Yuhara sighed slightly and nodded in approval, but soon shook his head again. He turned his head slightly and smiled softly at the elders behind him who looked a little worried, then looked at Shisui again. Finally, he and Shisui looked at Uchiha Fugaku together. At this moment, both his and Shisui's eyes instantly turned extremely scarlet, and there was no Magatama in their eyes. But it was those strange eyes with irregular patterns, emitting terrifying power. Uchiha Fugaku was a little confused at this moment. Not only him, but also those who supported him standing behind him were confused. But after being stunned, all of their faces became filled with fear, astonishment, and shock that was difficult to conceal. Mangekyo Sharingan, Uchiha Yuhara actually also possesses the Mangekyo Sharingan. Yuhara looked at Uchiha Fugaku calmly, and finally he smiled. But unfortunately, I also have such eyes. I think I am qualified, right? It's a headache QAQ. Next time I will make sure to look carefully before clicking. P.S. Please collect and read my articles, especially read my articles again. This is really very important. I beg you all. End of this chapter. Chapter 57 Minotaur? Chapter 57 Minotaur, it's really nice weather today. The next morning, Yuhara sat in his room, recalling everything that happened last night, which was still fresh in his memory. He succeeded because he successfully forced Uchiha Fugaku to abdicate. At this time, Uchiha Fugaku was no longer the patriarch of the family. Because through his analysis and judgment from a god's perspective, all that Uchiha Fugaku had done was exposed to all the top leaders of the family. His prestige has suffered an unimaginable blow, and it is obvious that he no longer has the ability to continue to control the huge Uchiha family. But Yuhara was not completely successful, because Uchiha Fugaku showed his Mangekyo Sharingan to everyone at the last moment. He also made a request that was simply impossible to refuse, which was that the new patriarch needed to defeat him. Only by defeating him would he be qualified to become the new patriarch. Although it was not surprising that Yuhara would do such a thing, after all, although this guy was weak, he was still an Uchiha, and an Uchiha who possessed a Mangekyo. To put it simply, he's just a psychopath. Yuhara had prepared himself mentally, and he was not even surprised that Uchiha Fugaku possessed the Mangekyo. After all, in Itachi's true biography, this guy unscrupulously showed his Mangekyo to Itachi, so it's no surprise that he appears now. However, his action directly prevented Yuhara from getting the position of clan leader directly, because after subsequent discussions, the battle between him and Yuhara would take place in a month. However, this fight for the position of patriarch is just an open and legal fight for succession. Yuhara and Shisui, who essentially possess two pairs of Mangekyo, have already gained actual control of the family. Uchiha Fugaku is no longer considered the clan leader. Such a huge shock to his prestige and crisis of trust have caused him to lose control of the family. Moreover, the top leaders of the Uchiha clan have basically already taken sides, so it can be said that Yuhara still has the final say over the Uchiha clan now. All he lacked was the title of patriarch, which required the recognition of the former patriarch, and that was all. But, I heard from Shisui that Uchiha Itachi has also opened the Mangekyo Sharingan. This is the most incredible thing. Just thinking about Uchiha Itachi's problem, Yuhara frowned. He really didn't expect that Uchiha Itachi could open the Mangekyo Sharingan, but Shisui didn't die, so how did this guy open the Mangekyo? Although Yuhara has always known that Uchiha Itachi has the potential to open the Mangekyo, without that powerful mental burst, how can he open it? Could it be that you felt that Shisui had taken a different path, and then you concluded that the Shisui in your heart was dead, so you opened it? Yuhara couldn't help but complain in his heart that no one knew when the Uchiha clan would go crazy and then undergo a mental change. As for how to deal with this kid, if according to the original work, Yuhara actually doesn't have to take Uchiha Itachi too seriously. The reason is very simple, that is, Yuhara knows him very well. In the original work, Uchiha Itachi's Mangekyo abilities are almost known to everyone. Knowing these abilities, Yuhara can naturally come up with corresponding countermeasures. It's just that the way this guy opened his eyes now is a bit confusing, and it's hard for Yuhara to guess his ability. Now this guy is as difficult to deal with as Uchiha Fugaku. However, if my idea is correct, then Uchiha Itachi's ability should still be the same as before. After all, it seems that Shisui is the only one who can stimulate him to open his eyes. Anyway, I haven't heard of any accident happening to Sasuke, and Shisui is no longer the same Shisui as before. Then this kid may have opened his eyes because of Shisui's change and the series of actions of his family, which made him feel extremely desperate. Although Yuhara was not sure whether his idea was correct, after all, Shisui did not fight Itachi at that time, but this did not prevent Yuhara from guessing in this direction. Moreover, no matter what kind of Mangekyo it was, Yuhara was more or less confident to deal with it, because he was not without a trump card. His success in the clan meeting led to an increase in his points. Although the increase was not much, only about 1,000 points, Yu Yuan was still very satisfied. In particular, the rewards such a system gives him are really too rich. Currently bound to Uchiha clan. Current status, relatively balanced. You have solved the problems within the family and have been formally recognized, but there are still evil people around you outside. Prosperity, 1 2 3 4 5, the normal family's basic prosperity is 10,000. Suggestion, get the position of clan leader to lead the family and deal with those who target the family. Congratulations to the host for completing the family integration. Although you are only one step away from leading the family, being able to do this also demonstrates the host's ability, so you will receive the advanced points reward. Secret art, firm will, can purify all current negative states and gain high recovery ability, without damaging one's own foundation. Duration is 8 seconds. Secret technique, Crescent Moon Guard, use chakra to repel or kill nearby enemies and form a strong wind. All ninjutsu and kunai thrown by enemies outside the range of the strong wind will not cause damage. The duration is 8 seconds. Secret technique, Sanskrit mantra. You can use secret techniques to strengthen your own ninjutsu, illusion, and pupil techniques within 8 seconds, and cause huge damage. This time, the reward really stunned Yun. If he remembered correctly, it was a big move. And to be frank, he was envious of all 3 skills, because each of them could give him a huge boost. No wonder the system said that this time it was a high-level points reward draw. Perhaps these abilities are not exchangeable at the current stage, or they can't be exchanged with the current 1000 points? However, Yuhara was too lazy to pay attention to all this. Now that he had these options, he certainly would not miss them. As for which one to choose, he was really troubled now. After careful consideration, he finally chose the skill, Mysticism Firm Will. Although this is a defensive skill, Yuhara really doesn't want to miss the ability to purify all negative effects. In the original work, Uchiha Fugaku's ability was not explained, but he used illusion to show Uchiha Itachi the fragments of the future that he had thought about. This means that his Kaleidoscope is likely to have super illusion abilities as well, so choosing this technique can deal with it well. As for the problem of Uchiha Itachi, although we don't understand what his eye technique is, the high recovery ability of his firm will can also play a huge role. When used together with my Susanoo, I am not afraid of you. As Yuhara walked, he thought silently in his heart. Although he always felt like he had become a Minotaur, having this ability did provide some security. Get up, go to the library and read some books, then go to the training ground and train hard. Don't waste time this month. Although Yuhara is not the clan leader at this time, the authority he has obtained is already great enough, which is also a good thing for him. And in order to achieve victory steadily, Yuhara must prepare well. If he wants to defeat Uchiha Fugaku, he must not slack off in the slightest. What he didn't know was that Uchiha Itachi had quietly arrived at the Hokage building. End of this chapter. Chapter 58. My name is Uchiha Madara. Chapter 58. My name is Uchiha Madara. Late at night, Uchiha Itachi stood silently on the edge of the cliff where he and Shisui had their secret meeting. Looking at the endless cliff, Itachi's heart was filled with sorrow. Since he came back from vacation, he found that many things he knew had changed dramatically. First, Shisui, the man whom he regarded as his brother, the man who taught him to help himself since childhood and who conveyed the message of peaceful coexistence between the village and the family, changed. He became a stranger, completely different from the Shisui in his memory, and the so-called new ideas proposed by this Shisui made his inner faith collapse. He never thought of confronting the village because he liked to think from the perspective of the Hokage. The current situation of the village is very bad, because the actions of the Hidden Cloud village have caused the village's credibility to plummet, which has led to a rapid drop in Konoha's mission share. In such a bad situation, if a fierce dispute arises between the family and the village, or even a coup breaks out, the blow to the village will be unimaginable. In fact, no matter who wins such a coup, the weakness of the village cannot be concealed in the end. Every ninja village has spies in other villages, which means that what happens in Konoha will inevitably be known to other villages. Such a weak Konoha would inevitably attract the attention of other villages, and the hatred fostered by the end of the Third War had never diminished. When the time comes, other villages will come to Konoha to seek revenge and launch an attack. Then Konoha will be unable to resist the offensive of other villages, which will lead to the destruction of Konoha. This kind of thing must never happen. Uchiha Itachi secretly swore in his mind that whether for the sake of the village, the family, or for his younger brother, he did not want the family and the village to fight. Therefore, Shisui's words hit Itachi's heart hard, and Shisui's change made him feel that the Shisui he was familiar with was dead. Under such an impact, one can imagine the fluctuations in his heart. It was because of such fluctuations that he felt that there were some changes in his eyes. But this change has not been complete yet, and he still has some hope and expectations in his heart. However, all these lucky hopes were completely destroyed when he was intercepted by Shisui last night when he hoped to enter the clan meeting to learn the details. Why not go in by himself, since he is a member of the ANBU, and because Shisui knows that he will report the information to the Hokage? Why are they worried about reporting this time? Because this time the clan will definitely be determined to do the most terrible thing. After figuring out these things, Uchiha Itachi could no longer control the chill in his heart. The suffocating despair continued to stimulate his heart and his nerves. Under such painful yet extremely powerful mental stimulation, he opened his own Mangekyo Sharingan, but this is not enough. Uchiha Itachi was filled with sighs in his heart. Although he had obtained the most powerful power of the Uchiha clan, unfortunately, he was not the only one in the family who possessed this power. The person he once most respected, Uchiha Shisui, also possessed this power, and had possessed it for a longer time and mastered a larger amount. He knew that he was no match for Shisui, and since he was not allowed to participate in the clan meeting, he now had no idea what the clan's next plan was. This feeling of confusion and despair made him feel a little overwhelmed. Who? Suddenly, Uchiha Itachi said coldly, and quietly reached behind his back with one hand, holding a kunai in his hand. Just a moment ago, he felt a strange and unfamiliar chakra echoing around him, which made him realize that there were people around. At this time and in this environment, no matter who is lurking around him, he must be careful and cautious enough. Suddenly, the ripples in space disappeared, and then a mysterious man in a black robe appeared from the space. This mysterious man was wearing a hood. Apart from the yellow mask on his jaw that could be seen in the moonlight, Uchiha Itachi could not find any other information. We're meeting for the first time, so don't make the atmosphere so tense, right, Itachi? The mysterious man spoke first, and it sounded like he was chuckling. Answer my question. Uchiha Itachi ignored him, and his eyes became more alert. His eyes turned scarlet, and his Sharingan stared closely at the opponent's every move, as if trying to find the right moment to attack. The younger generation nowadays is really too vigilant. The mysterious man whispered, then reached out and took off the hood on his head. The patterned mask was revealed, with only a hole at the right eye, where the 3 Magatama Sharingan was clearly visible. Let me introduce myself. I am a member of the Akatsuki organization, and my name is Uchiha Madara. Before he finished speaking, a cold light flashed. The moment the opponent took off his hood and opened his mouth, Uchiha Itachi attacked boldly. The kunai drew a cold light in the moonlight, and the figure had passed by the opponent, and the kunai even directly slashed the opponent's throat. However, nothing happened. The mysterious masked man turned around calmly, and looked at Itachi with his 3 Magatama Sharingan without emotion. This kind of petty action is meaningless. I have no ill intentions in coming here. If you insist on pushing me to the opposite side, I'm afraid you will regret your decision for the rest of your life. The moonlight shining on him, coupled with the words that everything was under control, gave Itachi an unprecedented pressure. Even Shisui had never given him such pressure, or rather, he had never given him such pressure. He stared at the man who claimed to be Uchiha Madara, and after a long while he said in a deep voice, "In this case, the first step in our communication must always be to be open and honest. You just said you were Uchiha Madara. I'm sorry, but I just can't believe this. Not only me, but no normal person can believe it. If you have no ill intentions, please take off the mask on your face first." The mysterious man suddenly chuckled, and said slowly in a low tone, "Foolish Uchiha Jr., I didn't expect that you also live in your own narrow world like those mediocre people. Everyone says that Uchiha Madara is dead, but what is the truth? People always take their ignorance as the truth because they don't understand. I hope you understand that I am Uchiha Madara, and I don't need to prove this to you, and it is you who are in danger now. Even if you are Uchiha Madara, what is your purpose in looking for me?" Uchiha Itachi looked at this mysterious man in silence, and after a long time he opened his mouth to ask, "What's the purpose?" The mysterious man still maintained his smile. He looked at Uchiha Itachi and said indifferently, "I don't have a specific purpose, I just came here to see you. I can see that you are distressed, but I am not interested in the Uchiha's situation, and I don't care about Konoha's attitude. So you don't have to be too wary of me, at least we don't have a direct conflict, right?" Itachi didn't say anything. He still couldn't figure out the other party's true intention, especially in the brief confrontation just now. He was at a disadvantage both verbally and physically. You are still vigilant." The mysterious man looked at Itachi's posture, and finally he smiled indifferently. "But this is true. If you believe it easily, then you are not worth the attention I pay to you. It's getting late, so let's end our conversation here for today. But there are some things I need to remind you of. The Uchiha situation has reached the brink of a cliff. Not only Uchiha, but even the world is on the brink of collapse. if you are at your wit's end, or have made a decision, come to me for help." As he spoke, the figure of this mysterious man began to become erratic, and the last words he left before disappearing made Uchiha Itachi even more silent. "I'll come find you, you can tell whoever you want to tell or what you want to say, but I hope you can give me a good answer next time. Remember, my name is Uchiha Madara." PS1, it seems that everyone is a little confused about Uchiha Itachi opening his eyes. Let me explain it briefly. Uchiha Itachi always thought that Shisui stood with him and they had the same beliefs. But then Shisui's beliefs changed, which was a betrayal to him. And in the original work, his position was also leaning towards the village. He kept repeating the issue of one clan, one village, and finally stabbed the family emblem with a kunai. Then the family opened the family crest and directly refused to let him in, because he was a third-generation person, and also because they couldn't accept it. They made harsh remarks. No one would like him to participate and know all the details, right? So in this situation, he thought that Shisui had betrayed, the Shisui in his memory was dead, and the family did not allow him to participate in the clan meeting in preparation for a coup. I think it is normal for him to open his eyes in such an extreme situation, right? Just like a comment from a book friend, it made me clench my fists. You have a childhood sweetheart, a beautiful girl sister, you have similar dreams and you think you can definitely become boyfriend and girlfriend in the future, and then realize your dreams, but she suddenly wants to go to shoot AV and you can't stop her. PS2. Thanks to Remlia I, King Thengchichabuwiran, Zilihali, Bansas Irons. Ofhnchan.meng, and AI and IMAQO for the tips. Thank you. Thank you. PS3, newbies, please collect and read this. Thank you everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 59 The Future of Uchiha. Chapter 59 The Future of Uchiha. How terrifying Uchiha Madara is. Even though Uchiha Itachi had never experienced that era, he had some idea of it. As the son of the clan leader, Uchiha Itachi has been able to obtain resources since he was a child that others might never be able to obtain in their entire lives. The information he could read and search was innumerable, and even some secret techniques were accessible to him at a young age. For example, Izanami, an Izanami who can decipher Izanami. Perhaps this is the privilege of being the clan leader's son. Of course, it is undeniable that Uchiha Itachi does have such talent and qualifications. And it is in such an environment that he knows so much more than others, including some information about Uchiha Madara. The appearance of Uchiha Madara really caught Uchiha Itachi off guard. Anyone would feel scared by such a terrifying guy. Although according to his age, Uchiha Madara should be buried soon at this time. But this guy appeared in front of him so brazenly that he really had to be on guard. Even though Uchiha Madara said he had no interest in Konoha, he really didn't believe it. Uchiha Madara, the Uchiha clan, and Konoha. At this moment, Uchiha Itachi felt unparalleled pressure. When so many things came together, he also felt a breathless feeling. But he also knew that the more he needed to stay calm at this time. Now he could only rely on himself to save Konoha and save everything. What should I do? What should I do? Uchiha Itachi kept asking himself this question in his heart. He lowered his head and looked at the cliff beside him that looked like an abyss. Suddenly he was stunned. Then he closed his eyes slightly, clenched his fists, and his body seemed to be shaking constantly at this moment. Finally, after a long struggle, all his movements stopped quietly. Opening his eyes, he once again stared at the towering cliff, and at this moment his aura became extremely cold. He is like a demon from hell, and also like pure ice that will never melt for thousands of years. The next morning, in the Hokage's office, Sarutobi Hiruzen, Mito Kato-en and Utane Kohara sat in a row, and below them was Uchiha Itachi, who was half kneeling in ANBU clothes. Based on what you just said, has the Uchiha clan completely reached this point? The first to speak was Utane Koharu. She was over 60 years old and had truly become an old woman. She no longer had the beauty and charm of her youth, and she looked unusually serious at this moment. Also, what on earth is this Akatsuki organization you mentioned? Uchiha Itachi lowered his head. His voice was extremely cold and solemn, but after some consideration he did not intend to say Uchiha Madara's name. Uchiha Madara is too special, and that masked guy is too mysterious. He plans to get more information before talking. I'm not sure about the family's attitude, but they forbade me to attend the family meeting last night. And Shisui also told me that we can't be weak to Konoha anymore and we need to resist, so I judge that this is likely the case. I don't know much about Akatsuki, but I can sense that they are very dangerous, and they seem to have some ulterior motives towards Konoha. Sarutobi Hiruzen silently lit his pipe, took a deep breath, and then said, I never thought that everything would come to this. After saying this, Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't help but fall silent. After a long time, Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head. Itachi, we know about these things. We will find a solution. Don't be so stressed during this period. Take a good rest. Having said this, Sarutobi Hiruzen paused. He looked at Uchiha Itachi meaningfully, and then spoke slowly. By the way, I think you should know something. You should inform Danzo. Although you are not from the root, your subordinates are members of the root. Since he is not here, it is only right for you to inform him. I understand. Itachi nodded gently, and he whispered, Please rest assured, Lord Hokage, I know what to do. Uchiha Itachi stood up, he bowed seriously to Sarutobi Hiruzen and others, and then activated the instant body technique, and his figure suddenly turned into a black shadow and disappeared. The third Hokage looked at the place where Uchiha Itachi disappeared. He shook his head for a long time. Then he put his pipe heavily on the table and spoke in a low voice. Now that there are no outsiders, I hope everyone can speak out their thoughts openly. Things have developed to this point and a decision needs to be made. And Danzo, you've been listening for so long, it's time to come out. As he finished speaking, Danzo Shimura quietly walked out from the shadows of the room. It was obvious that he had been there the whole time. Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't pay much attention to Shimura Danzo. His expression was completely different from when he faced Uchiha Itachi before. What do you think of the Uchiha clan, and the Akatsuki organization? Utane Koharo and Mizuto Kato-en looked at each other, and finally it was Mizuto Kato-en who spoke. I've never heard of Akatsuki, but the current situation with the Uchiha is so troublesome, no one knows what they are planning to do. But the feeling that this little brat Uchiha Itachi gives me is that the Uchiha clan has reached the most dangerous point. The trouble needs to be cleared up bit by bit, so the most important thing is to clear out the Uchiha clan first. Although we don't know what the Uchiha are going to do, didn't the previous clan meeting report that they had some special ideas? I think the best option is to strike first. Danzo Shimura also spoke at this moment, but this time he looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen with a hint of sarcasm on his face. Besides, haven't you already made a decision and given that brat a direction? Hearing what Danzo Shimura said, Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head slightly. Finally, he raised his head and looked at Danzo Shimura, and spoke in an extremely solemn tone. It's good to strike first, but I won't give the order to exterminate the Uchiha clan, and Konoha's ninjas can't do that either. I think you understand what I mean. Humph. With a cold snort, Danzo lightly touched the ground with his cane and spoke coldly. Your hypocritical face is truly disgusting. After being the Hokage for so many years, Hiruzen, you have fallen. As Hokage, you have lost all your courage, but don't worry, I know what to do. Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head. He completely ignored Shimura Danzo's ridicule, and he did not give any explanation to Shimura Danzo. Because this is not about courage, nor is it hypocrisy, it is a necessity. No matter how others view this matter, the Hokage must never issue an order to exterminate the major clans in the village. Unless the Uchiha clan takes the initiative to do something, even the Konoha ninjas must not get involved. Otherwise, the village will no longer be their village. In the following meeting, the four continued to discuss possible details. For example, the Uchiha clan should be very vigilant now and not act recklessly for the time being. For example, let Uchiha Itachi make good preparations and know who should be sent to cooperate when the time comes. 2 hours later, the four of them left one after another. But the future of the Uchiha clan has been determined by them in just 2 hours. End of this chapter. Chapter 60 Chance Encounter. Chapter 60 Chance Encounter. Sarutobi Hiruzen and the Meteor Garden Fort don't know what the Akatsuki organization is, nor do they care. What they care about is actually the Uchiha. Due to Uchiha Shisui's sudden betrayal, Uchiha Itachi was ostracized by the family, and the Uchiha clan's family meeting became so mysterious. All of this gave them reason to doubt whether the Uchiha clan was really going to do something. But no matter whether it is true or not, as long as the Uchiha clan does not take action, they must not strike first, which is too passive for them. Fortunately, Uchiha Itachi is now a small captain of the Yambu, but he was assigned to Danzo's subordinates because of special reasons. Both of his teammates are from the root, so he does have some things he needs to report to Danzo, and there are even some things that he only needs to report to Danzo. Danzo can also give orders directly to Uchiha Itachi, so many things become convenient. For example, some special missions can be issued by Danzo, and these tasks will not pass through the hands of the Hokage, let alone be recorded by the Yambu. Therefore, in certain extremely specific circumstances, Uchiha Itachi's value is fully brought into play. Because he is a member of the Uchiha clan, because he is completely on the side of the Hokage. Moreover, they also decided to wait for a while before taking action. They had just revoked Uchiha Itachi's right to participate in clan meetings, so the Uchiha must remain vigilant at this moment. Besides, the Uchiha are not stupid. They will definitely take certain precautions. It will be the best time to take action after a while when they become careless. Yuhara didn't know what the Meteor Garden 4 of Konoha were thinking. Even what Uchiha Itachi had done, Yuhara didn't know. Even if he asked Shisui to find a way to track Uchiha Itachi, he would not get much information. After all, as both are owners of the Mangekyo and members of the Yambu, Uchiha Itachi's anti-tracking ability is very strong. Apart from knowing that this boy secretly went to meet Sarutobi Hiruzen and the others, Yuhara really didn't know anything else. But it's probably not a good thing for this kid to meet Sarutobi Hiruzen, so we still need to be careful. After all, this guy has a Mangekyo. Just keep an eye on this kid, and if Uchiha doesn't take action, Sarutobi Hiruzen won't dare to take action in a big way. Uchiha Itachi is the most troublesome. Yuhara walked on the street, thinking in his mind, while heading towards the training ground. He has been concentrating on training these days, and the family has also sent many elite ninjas to train with him. In fact, for Yuhara, his best training opponent is naturally Shisui, but the problem is that Shisui is still monitoring Uchiha Itachi's every move. Even if Shisui couldn't get any information, or even if Uchiha Itachi noticed it, this matter must be carried out. Just like when Uchiha Itachi showed his Mangekyo to Shisui, Yuhara knew that this kid's Mangekyo could not pose any threat to Shisui, but it still had a deterrent effect. Uchiha Itachi displayed the Mangekyo probably to intimidate them and tell them that he also had such power. And Yuhara's purpose of letting Shisui follow Uchiha Itachi was very clear, that is to tell Uchiha Itachi we are watching you, and your every move is under our observation. Also, I remember that Uchiha Itachi seemed to have carried out a series of actions together with Uchiha Obito, so has Uchiha Obito taken any action now? Yuhara still remains vigilant towards Uchiha Obito. Even though Yuhara knows his weakness, the ability of space is really extremely troublesome. It seems that the only ones who can deal with him are the dead 4th Hokage Minato Namikaze, and Kakashi, who has basically mastered the Mangekyo in the later period and cooperated with Naruto to launch attacks. But Shisui is right here with me. At worst, I can let Shisui use Habatenjin on Uchiha Obito. I don't believe he won't fall for it. Using illusion to deal with Uchiha Obito is the best way that Yuhara can think of at the moment, and Koto Amatsukumi's deterrent power is even more terrifying. Yuhara felt that there were probably not many people in this world who could withstand the illusion that could quietly rewrite other people's will. Of course, the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan may not be afraid of Koto Amatsukumi, and those who possess the cells of Hashirama Senju may also be able to withstand it. Yuhara habitually takes all possible factors into consideration, although what he considers has not been confirmed, but this does not prevent him from making guesses. And no matter whether Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Obito want to contact each other now, this guy may be Yuhara's enemy in the future. So it is only normal to make preparations early and list it as an imaginary enemy. Come to think of it, if I could extract some of Old Man Time's skills, not the ultimate move, just the deceleration, I could make Obito play with me at my fingertips. The power of time has always been one of the most terrifying forces. If Yuhara wants to obtain such power through normal means in this world, he can only hope for the Kaleidoscope to explode. However, when Yuhara Mangekyo awakened through the system, all he could think about was obtaining the strongest power, and the result was what it is now. However, Yuhara is not without a solution through abnormal means. After all, Yuhara is also a person with a system. Shaking his head, Yuhara was too lazy to think about getting what he wanted through the system lottery. To put it bluntly, this thing was too illusory. Instead of thinking about these things, it is better to think about what Uchiha Madara would do if facing a be.So technique. After much thought, Yuhara felt that Uchiha Madara's best option was probably to activate Susanoo and wait for a be.So to take action. Once a be.So makes a move, Uchiha Madara will definitely burst out with unimaginable power in an instant and knock a be.So down in an instant. After all, in terms of the basic qualities of a ninja, I'm afraid there are few people who can be a match for Uchiha Madara. After thinking all this through, Yuhara felt that the top priority now was to improve his own strength. Now he can read all the books in the library, including the chapters on forbidden techniques, and he has learned a lot. Whether it was Izanagi or Izanami, he had memorized them, and he also learned powerful fire techniques such as Great Fire Annihilation and Great Fire Annihilation. As a reinforcement, he also made some additions to the Earth style and the Wind style gained from the Water Bird dance. Except for not completing the transformation and qualitative change of Earth Escape and Wind Escape, I can say that I have already enhanced everything else. Oh, I don't need Wind style, Water Bird dance is the one that gave me a qualitative change. Yun didn't need to think too much about the deformation and qualitative change of Earth and Wind Escape in this short period of time, because there was simply not enough time to complete them. Instead of spending time on this, Yuhara feels that he might as well invest more time in Susanoo. He originally had a method to reduce the difficulty of activating Susanoo and reduce the consumption of techniques, and he also read so many records of Uchiha history. It can be said that his understanding of Susanoo has been further improved, since it is natural to spend more time on Susanoo. And the color of my Susanoo is the same as Uchiha Madara's. I don't know if my Susanoo can grow to the same level as Uchiha Madara's. Uchiha Madara's Susanoo is azure blue, and so is Yuhara's, but now Yuhara can only open Susanoo to the second stage at most. It looks quite embarrassing. After all, whether compared with Uchiha Madara or Uchiha Sasuke, his Susanoo is not good enough. But he achieved this by being frugal and constantly exploring, which only took him a month or so. So considering this, the result is not bad. Ha! As he walked, he suddenly found two familiar faces walking towards him. One of these two people is Nara Shikamaru, and the other is Nara Kotonoada, thanks to my classmates whose nickname cannot be used for the reward. Thank you, thank you. End of this chapter. Alright legends, that's it for today. Like, subscribe, and I'll meet you in the next audiobook.